Chapter 2341. Just then a person fell from the sky. Everyone looked over and realized that it was Brad. After Brad, Zhang Tianyi landed slowly. Brad wasn't fatally injured, but his face was swollen. Zhang Tianyi, on the other hand, was gasping for breath. He put his hands on his waist and looked like he was about to cry. You two are really too much. You don't understand this old man at all. This guy is really hard to deal with. This old man spent a great deal of effort and used all of my means to take him down. I almost lost my life. On the ground, Brad wanted to cry too, because Zhang Tianyi had indeed attacked more than 100 times. But each time he was slapped. Simply put, Zhang Tianyi had slapped him more than 100 times. Apart from that, he didn't use any other spells. Every time Brad used a spell, it didn't matter what it was used for, or whether it was effective on Zhang Tianyi. Either way, he would get a slap. Then Zhang Tianyi would curse him. Brad believed that Zhang Tianyi was tired from beating people and thirsty from cursing. However, did he have the ability to subdue him after expending a great deal of effort? The injuries on his face were all caused by Zhang Tianyi's hands-on treatment. After this battle, he finally understood how terrifying Zhang Tianyi was, and the difference between him and Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi's strength was the kind that made no sense at all. If he wanted to hit someone, he didn't care what techniques you had. He didn't care what extraordinary power you had as long as you had a pair of palms. He could beat you so hard that even your mom couldn't recognize you. Zhang Tianyi was just that unreasonable. He wouldn't even use spells against you. No matter how many tricks you had, he would just slap you. So when Brad heard Zhang Tianyi's crying, he didn't feel any pain. He only felt wronged and cursed inwardly. As for Chen Zhao and Baifla, they just looked at Zhang Tianyi expressionlessly. Their only reply was a chuckle. Celestial Master Grandpa is so shameless. You beat him up and he's still complaining. Shameless, shameless. Little Jerlin made a face at Zhang Tianyi. Hee hee, baby, come, let Grandpa hug you. Cheerfully, Zhang Tianyi ran to Chen Zhao and reached out to take Jerlin. No, Grandpa, Heavenly Master stinks. Look at your father. He's not much cleaner than me. I don't want you to hug me. Humph. Little Jerlin nestled in Chen Zhao's arms, still making faces with her cute little face. Blade's eyes flashed. He saw Nicole and Ursana not far away. His heart sank to the bottom. Did the two of them not escape? That's not good at all. He had originally thought that he could hold Zhang Tianyi back. Ursina and Nicole would be able to escape. Moreover, he also believed that his plan had succeeded. Who would have thought that Asuna and Nicole would still be stopped here? Baifla was held back by the cannon fodder, and Zhang Tianyi was being held up by him. Was it the man carrying the little girl who stopped Asuna and Nicole? Who was that guy? How could he stop Asuna and Nicole? Others might not know, but how could Brad not? Asana and Nicole were a handful. Now, Zhang Tianyi and Baifla had also arrived. It was impossible for them to leave now. Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi snorted and looked up at the sky. The sunlight was suddenly blocked by something. Chen Zhao also looked up. He realized that metal discs had appeared in the sky one after another. These were the same discs that had attacked Chen Zhao before. It was just that the number this time was many times more than the previous ones. They were densely packed and neatly arranged. There could be hundreds of them. I was attacked by a few of them just now. What are they? Whose? Chen Zhao asked. Zhang Tianyi and Baifla were confused too. They seemed to be guessing who did it. These metal discs all emitted a powerful elemental aura. Moreover, to be able to control so many metal discs at the same time, the magic level must be extraordinary. So many metal discs hovered in the air, but they did not attack them immediately. But this confrontation was actually a threat to the three. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and Baifla, whom the mastermind had threatened, were all people who would not be threatened. The three's pride, or rather their arrogance, was so similar. Cowardly scoundrel. Zhang Tianyi snorted and stepped forward. Zhang Tianyi was serious this time. Zhang Tianyi formed a seal with his hands and shouted, Star-Lord Huang, Feng Shuzong, Bailey Piaoxing, Punishing Heaven Sword, King of Zhou, break. All of a sudden, the hundreds of metal discs were pieced together. The chaotic elemental aura suddenly merged into one. It turned into an indestructible metal barrier. Zhang Tianyi pointed at the metal barrier. The metal barrier looked as if it had been stripped of its scales. The metal plates broke off the metal barrier piece by piece and fell to the ground. Chen Zhao did not know Taoism, but he knew that Zhang Tianyi had just chanted a Taoist mantra. Of course, this was mainly because Fei Lai had been fascinated by feng shui and had searched everywhere for feng shui books. Chen Zhao had used his identity to obtain some. At the same time, he had also obtained some Taoist books. The mantra that Zhang Tianyi had just chanted really appeared in the Ziwei Do Shu Wang log. Legend had it that feng shui originated from the era of King Wu of Zhou. It was said that Jiang Ziya had created it when King Wu conquered Zhou. The Ziwei star was also known as the Master of Dipper. Therefore, when it came to feng shui, most people would mention the Ziwei star lord. However, Chen Zhao was more concerned about the fact that Zhang Tianyi had not used an ordinary spell. Zhang Tianyi didn't use any huge amount of transcendence energy. He just stepped on Mount Sumeru and pinched the stars. It looked like the tricks of a charlatan, but the seemingly indestructible metal barrier was forcibly peeled off by him. Of course, neither friend nor foe would think that the old man was a swindler. Fuck, show yourself. The Big Dipper, the Six Directions, the Ziwei Star, the Nangong Palace, the fire. Zhang Tianyi once again made a hand seal. This time, a small flame burst out from Zhang Tianyi's fingertip. The seemingly insignificant flame spun a few times in the air and turned into a flaming dragon. The flaming dragon crashed headfirst into the metal barrier. With a loud boom, all the metal discs shattered and flew everywhere. At the same time, it kicked up a huge sandstorm. Amidst the dust and sand, a huge figure appeared. If not for the sandstorm, he probably would not have shown himself so easily. Come out. You've already been exposed. There's no point in hiding anymore. Chapter 2342. The figure hiding behind the sand finally stopped hiding. It wasn't exactly generous, but at least it was facing it calmly. It was a giant dragon with a huge body and a terrifying draconic might. It also radiated a terrifying magic power. However, this dragon was very special because its entire body was covered in metal armor. Even its wings were covered in thick metal. This dragon's size had reached the level of a dragon's father. Its magic aura was also extremely strong, but what the three cared about was the rippling elements on its body. Usually dragons were single elemental. Occasionally, there would be dual elemental dragons. However, this metal dragon was quadruple elemental. Chen Zhao was surprised. Was this metal dragon the culprit behind the attack on the fire worship sex base? He had to admit that this metal dragon was very powerful. But did he really think he could fight Zhang Tianyi head-on? What a joke. Even Chen Zhao wasn't confident. He thought that he was stronger than Zhang Tianyi in terms of combat power. But at their level, combat power wasn't necessarily the deciding factor in a battle. Who knew what kind of spell Zhang Tianyi would throw at him? It was even possible that he could be suppressed directly. As soon as the metal dragon appeared in front of him, it either had a trick up its sleeve or was stupid. However, Chen Zhao really couldn't imagine how the metal dragon could escape. Putting Zhang Tianyi aside, Chen Zhao and Bifla wouldn't just stand by and watch. Zhang Tianyi also frowned. The metal dragon's aura seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember. I've seen you before, Zhang Tianyi said, pointing at the metal dragon. Pfft. It's my honor to be remembered by the Celestial Master. Even the proud WRMS had to put away their pride and arrogance in front of Zhang Tianyi. Most of the giant dragons viewed other races, including humans, as mere ants. However, they were facing Zhang Tianyi, an ant who could crush most dragons to death. Don't talk. Let me think. I can definitely remember. Where did I meet you? Zhang Tianyi lowered his head in deep thought, his expression serious. The metal dragon wasn't in a hurry either. It let Zhang Tianyi's mind wander. Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi clapped his hands. I remember now. The genius of the giant dragon clan, Udal Loken. The metal dragon grinned. You finally remembered, Celestial Master. Fuck, how did you get yourself into this state? Back then, you were still a little handsome dragon. Because of you, my great Celestial Master. The metal dragon let out a horrifying laugh. Bifla and Chen Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi at the same time. Did they misunderstand? Or did this big guy use the wrong words? Don't Don't make it sound so ambiguous. We've only met once, and it was 120 years ago. That's right. 120 years ago, during my dragon race's ancestral dragon's birthday, you followed your master to my race's dragon island. Then, you defeated me and used my name as a genius to achieve your own accomplishments. Wait, let me sort out my thoughts. I remember that you were the one who challenged me. Why does it seem like I'm using you? Moreover, I remember that we got along quite well in the following days. Isn't it too late to sort out who was in the right, and who was in the wrong? Udal Loken sneered at Zhang Tianyi. In order to defeat you and wash away the humiliation you've inflicted on me, I've been working hard. But no matter how hard I try, I can only live in your shadow. Even now, I possess the power of the Dragon Father, but you're still like a mountain that's always pressing down on me. Then should I say sorry? Haha, I'm joking with you. Udal Loken suddenly laughed. I can't even count the number of times I've been defeated by others in my life. How can I remember it just because you defeated me? But I'm serious about pursuing power. Udal Loken's tone suddenly changed. It's very uncomfortable to face you here. But since I've been exposed, I can only fight. You're not just facing Celestial Master Zhang. The flames on Bifla's body burned again. Oh, I remember now. And you, an ant. Bifla soared into the sky and punched at Udal Loken. At the same time, a terrifyingly high temperature rose. The metal on Udal Loken's body seemed to be melting. Wow, it's hot. Jerlin covered her head with her hands. Even from a few hundred meters away, she could still feel the heat. Zhang Tianyi casually cast a small spell on Jerlin. Wow, so comfortable. Grandpa Celestial Master, give me another one. Chen Zhao's attention was on Bifla. Udal Loken also seemed to be unable to endure the terrifying flames. He looked up and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at Bifla. However, his breath could only travel less than 10 meters before it was suppressed by Bifla's flames. Dragons of all attributes could spit dragon breath, which would also be mixed with their own attributes. It could be said that all dragons were experts at playing with fire. But today, Udal Loken met an enemy who knew how to play with fire even better than him. Bifla. Udal Loken also did not expect his dragon breath to be suppressed by Bifla. Such pure flames. Udal Loken murmured. Udal Loken muttered to himself. Bifla's flames erupted with even more terrifying power. In an instant, Udal Loken was swallowed by the sea of fire. Ah, Zhang Tianyi, I like you. Those were Udal Loken's last words. Bifla stopped his attack and turned to look at Chen Zhao in surprise. Zhang Tianyi, that's a male dragon. Fuck. That guy's a fake. He's just messing with us. Zhang Tianyi stomped his feet in anger. Bifla calmed himself down and returned his attention to the battlefield. Engulfed by the sea of fire, most of Udal Loken's body gradually melted. However, the only thing that melted was his metal body. He did not find Udal Loken's flesh and blood. Was it really a fake? Udal Loken only had a metal head left. I've been discovered. What a pity. But Zhang Tianyi, I meant what I said just now. I'm a gay dragon. Zhang Tianyi's face kept twitching, but he could not do anything to this guy. It was useless, even if he destroyed the metal head. It was just a remote-controlled shell. Chapter 2343. Not many people in the world dared to tease Zhang Tianyi. Clearly, Udal Loken didn't plan on fighting Zhang Tianyi head-on. Also, because he didn't come with his real body, he didn't have any worries. He could tease Zhang Tianyi without restraint. Even if Zhang Tianyi stomped his feet in anger, there was nothing he could do. Chen Zhao and Bifla watched from the side. Even though Bifla hated Udal Loken to the core, Bifla didn't care. But there was nothing he could do. Chen Zhao was even more curious about how this dragon called Udal Loken could control such a metal body. In terms of strength alone, the controlled steel WIRM was not weaker than ordinary WIRMs. In fact, it was much stronger. It was just a puppet that was being controlled, yet it already possessed such strength. Then how strong was its real body? Of course, Chen Zhao was an outsider in this conflict. At least, before Bifla asked him for help personally, he was an outsider. Even though Chen Zhao had participated in this battle, Udal Loken glanced at his subordinates. I'll leave them in Celestial Master Zhang's hands for now. Please take good care of them. I'll take them back soon. Ha! You want to take them back? That depends on whether you have the ability. Bifla grinned hideously at Udal Loken's almost melted metal head. Trust me, Udal Loken said confidently. Before long, you'll return them to me personally. Suddenly, a beam of red light pierced through Brad's head. Brad was still in shock, but the next moment, his soul had already left his body. He didn't even know what had happened until he died. And the person who killed him was Bifla. Bifla pointed at Nico and Asuna. At the same time, he looked at the remaining metal heads. Tell me, why do you think we'll return them to you? In Chen Zhao's impression, Bifla had always been very calm. Until today, all of Bifla's mania and anger had been revealed. Zhang Tianyi didn't expect Bifla to be so direct. Shouldn't they keep them alive? That way, he could get the necessary information from them. But Bifla killed one just like that. Judging from his actions, he seemed to want to kill the remaining two. Zhang Tianyi felt that it was inappropriate. But today, Bifla was the person involved. He was most qualified to decide the life and death of these two women. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi did not speak. Udal Loken said nothing more. He didn't expect Bifla to respond so forcefully. He was afraid that if he said another word, Bifla would really kill Nicole and Asuna. Blade was his right-hand man. But in the end, they were not as important as Nicole and Asuna. Although Brad's death was regrettable, it was still barely acceptable. But once Nicole and Asuna died, then his plan would be completely ruined. Therefore, he did not want to provoke Bifla any further. Looks like they're really important to you. A cruel smile appeared on Bifla's face. It should be because of their special magic constitutions. It seems that I really need to make good use of them. The metal skull finally melted completely, and he remained silent for the last few minutes. Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi looked at Bifla. These two captives belonged to Bifla. Their lives were also decided by Bifla. Bifla, are you going to kill them? Zhang Tianyi asked. He was also quite interested in Nicole and Asuna's magic. After all, absolute immunity to other people's attacks was almost unimaginable. Even Chen Zhao, who had the best physique and defense among the three, did not dare to say that he could be immune to all attacks. At least, if there was a strong enough magic attack, it could break through Chen Zhao's defense. But Nicole and Asuna were different. They could make any one of them absolutely immune. According to that dragon's train of thought, he definitely wants us to pry open their mouths. If I continue with this train of thought, I might fall into his trap. So you're going to kill them now? Bifla lowered his head and thought for a while. No, I'm more curious about what they can tell me. I also want to know what that dragon said. In the end, we'll personally return them to him. Zhang Tianyi also wanted to know why they'd return the two of them. Did he have something on them? Was he confident that this could threaten Chen Zhao and Bifla? Or did he have the ability? Or was he using normal people to threaten them? It didn't seem feasible. Since guessing won't work, we'll pry open their mouths first. We're just guessing here. What can we get? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. This kind of brain-wasting work was really not suitable for him. No need, Asuna said honestly. Whatever you want to know, we can tell you as long as we know it. How can we do that? Chen Zhao said. Intelligence without torture might not be true. Both Asuna and Nicole stared at Chen Zhao angrily. Chen Zhao's words were too vicious. He was going to force them to their deaths. It's just a joke. Don't be so serious. We're here to kidnap Argentero under Master Udal's orders. Where's Argentero? Where did you hide him? I don't know. We're only in charge of delaying and destroying. Someone else will naturally complete the kidnapping. Everyone was obviously not satisfied with this answer. Then tell me the dragon's real goal. To become a god. Fuck, why is it this super stupid goal again? Chen Zhao cursed. Papa, you can't curse. Zhang Tianyi and Bifla glanced at Chen Zhao. What kind of father are you? You're cursing in front of kids. Other than that, don't you have any other deeper motives? Like maintaining world peace? Nicole and Asuna both looked at Zhang Tianyi, as if he was an idiot. Then what are the specific steps? The three could actually easily accept Asuna and Nicole's goal. Because there really had been gods in this world before. Thus, it was theoretically possible to become a god. Why do you think we should know? You're his subordinates, and should be an important part of his plan. Why shouldn't we know? We can't understand Master Udal's great ambition. Becoming a god isn't a great ambition, Chen Zhao complained. It's also very childish. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 2344. After this, Bifla stayed behind to deal with the aftermath. After all, the sect of fire had been attacked and many disciples had died. He didn't have time to care about anything else. The most important thing was to take care of the remaining disciples. Chen Zhao and Zhilin would only cause trouble if they stayed. Then Bifla chased them away. This wasn't a joke. The father and daughter stayed in the sect of fire for 10 minutes. Bifla went berserk. Chen Zhao wanted to help take care of the injured. After all, being a doctor was his main job. He was confident that he could take care of the injured. In the end, he imbued vitality into one of the injured. The injury healed quickly, but it was too effective. The person Chen Zhao had infused with vitality had been injured in the back. In the end, because of the excessive vitality, he grew another arm on his back. Bifla almost fainted from anger. On one hand, it was because Chen Zhao treated randomly. On the other hand, Chen Zhao's treatment method was too extravagant. It was even wasteful. Have you ever seen someone donate to an orphanage only to end up in a bank? Chen Zhao's treatment method was similar. Zhilin was much worse than Chen Zhao. She ran around the half-destroyed sect of fire's base. When she saw the injured lying on the ground, she ran up to them and poked their wounds. You even used a very innocent tone to ask me if it hurts? Was this something a human would do? The injured knew that Zhilin was the daughter of their sect leader's friend. Even if she had tears in her eyes, she shouldn't be angry. Chen Zhao felt helpless too. He really wanted to help. In the end, the father and daughter were chased out of the sect of fire's base. When they returned to the city, it was already midnight. Compared to a sleepless city like Los Angeles, Istanbul was much quieter. Of course, Istanbul's historical value was countless times that of Los Angeles. Under the night sky in Istanbul, there were always countless spiritualists moving about. The strongest spiritualists in the world were gathered here. But no one came to cause trouble for the father and daughter. They returned to the hotel successfully. Chen Zhao comforted Zhilin and put her to sleep. On the other hand, Chen Zhao stood on the balcony of the suite and absorbed the yin-yang qi. Suddenly, he saw a few spiritualists chasing each other on the road outside the hotel. Upon closer inspection, he recognized 2 of them. They seemed to be Cliff and Ampa. They were the ones being chased. The 6 spiritualists chased after them. Upon closer inspection, the spiritualists chasing after them seemed to be Indians. The 6 spiritualists were clearly stronger than Cliff and Ampa. However, they seemed to have some misgivings, so they did not use any offensive methods. Every time he attacked, he would use binding and control spells. Cliff and Ampa, on the other hand, were barely able to resist. But looking at the situation, it wouldn't be long before he was defeated and captured. Chen Zhao considered whether he should attack, or how he should do it. At this moment, an extremely loud gunshot resounded through the night sky. A spiritualist fell to the ground. Chen Zhao's vision was excellent, so he could see clearly. The spiritualist's neck was pierced through, and the powerful penetrating force, coupled with the airflow, almost completely broke the spiritualist's neck. Raising an eyebrow, Chen Zhao searched the surroundings. Looking in the direction of the bullet's trajectory, he saw a sniper on the rooftop of a tall building. It was at least 2,000 meters away from the scene. All the spiritualists present were terrified. They didn't have the ability to stop bullets. Now they had to face a sniper hiding in the dark. Cliff and Ampa also lay on the ground, not daring to get up. The sniper's first shot was to attack the people chasing after them. But who knew what his real goal was? Just then, there was a second gunshot. This time, it didn't hit anyone. However, it left an extremely exaggerated bullet hole in front of the Indians. The area around the bullet hole seemed to have been corroded by something, leaving a bowl-sized hole. They're spiritualists. Everyone raise your shields. One of the Indians shouted. At the same time, he rolled on the ground and hid behind a roadblock. Right now, The sniper in the dark was observing the scene through the scope of his sniper rifle. Tisk tsk. Too slow. I only noticed now, the sniper said proudly. Okay, stop talking. Finish it quickly. Don't drag it out. His partner's voice came from the sniper's earpiece. Got it. The sniper switched to regular bullets this time. He'd used magic bullets for the second shot, just to make the spiritualists think that he would continue using magic bullets. When they used their magic shields, it was time for the sniper to harvest. Magic bullets were very different from regular sniper rifle bullets. Magic bullets had many special additional effects. Regular bullets, on the other hand, were much simpler, pure physical damage. If the necromancers were hiding behind some obstacles, using magic bullets would be the most effective. The various attributes of magic bullets could help the sniper destroy those obstacles. But the magic properties of magic bullets weren't strong, so they could easily be blocked by magic shields. Everything had its pros and cons, and that was the disadvantage of magic bullets. But this time, the sniper switched to regular bullets. Of course, it was normal compared to magic bullets, but compared to real ordinary small caliber bullets, it wasn't the case. Because he wasn't using small caliber sniper bullets. It was super large armor piercing bullets. And he wasn't using an ordinary mid-range sniper rifle either. It was a long-range sniper rifle. In the military, super large caliber bullets were mostly described as cannons. With the effect of a sniper rifle and a large caliber armor piercing bullet, it could basically penetrate about 60 centimeters of concrete within its range. Bang! A sniper rifle shot directly blew up the head of a spiritualist hiding behind a concrete barricade. It wasn't accurate to say that it was a headshot. It was more like a headshot. The spiritualist thought that he was protected by a magic shield and a barricade, so he should be safe. But the power of the sniper rifle taught him a lesson. Beautiful. The sniper didn't care that he was in a sniper position. He shouted loudly and excitedly, and couldn't help but kiss his rifle again. Don't waste time there. Finish the battle quickly. Got it. Don't rush me. The sniper then aimed at the third spiritualist. He was about to pull the trigger when the sniper suddenly had a very uncomfortable feeling. It was the feeling of being watched by others. The sniper immediately rolled and hid in the shadows. At the same time, he tried to determine where the feeling of being watched was coming from. Through the scope, the sniper finally found where the gaze was coming from. It was in the hotel next to the position where he was sniping. A man stood on the balcony of one of the suites. The man had been watching everything on the battlefield, and at the same time, he was also watching the sniper, the divine emperor of the 9 heavens. Chapter 2345. A third party? The sniper's heart jumped. Or was the man not a third party, but the superior of the Indian spiritualists? He could observe him from so far away. And it was nighttime too. Was he a perceptual spiritualist? Due to the demands of the times, there were many special and complicated branches of perceptual spiritualists in the world. Some perceptual spiritualists were very dangerous. Aluo. I found a perceptual spiritualist. He's watching me. He saw all my previous actions. Can you confirm his identity? No. Tell me his location. I'll take care of him. You continue your mission. That guy doesn't look easy to deal with, the sniper said. You better be careful. Maybe he's just bait. Aluo moved quickly. He quickly brought his men to the hotel. Their ambush location wasn't far from the hotel. Their original plan was to have the sniper attack while they were in charge of support. If the Indian spiritualists escaped, they would take care of them. But now that the plan had changed, they could only give up on the ambush and go around the hotel. Soon, Chen Zhao heard knocks on the door. Chen Zhao knew who they were, or rather, what they wanted. But Zhirlin was sleeping soundly in the bedroom. Chen Zhao didn't want to cause too much of a commotion. Chen Zhao opened the door and saw 8 people outside. Everyone was wearing a field uniform and was armed to the teeth. When Chen Zhao opened the door, all 8 of them had their guns pointed at him. But in the next moment, a black curtain silently rose behind them, covering the head of the person standing at the back. The person couldn't even make a sound before he fell to the ground. Show my daughter sleeping. Chen Zhao smiled faintly and gestured for them to keep quiet. But the people in front of him didn't care. The leader raised his gun and smashed it at Chen Zhao's head. It was a public place, but the upper floors of the hotel were all spiritualists. The owner of the hotel also had countless connections with spiritualists, so there weren't many random people here. Chen Zhao didn't need to be secretive here. Even if he attacked, it would be fine as long as he didn't cause too much damage. The moment the leader was about to pull the trigger, Chen Zhao suddenly grabbed the barrel and twisted it upward. The barrel broke. At the same time, he closed the door behind him. To Chen Zhao, these spiritualists couldn't even be considered decent. In a few seconds, everyone was lying on the ground. These people were also dumbfounded. After all, they had fought many big and small battles. They were confident that they could fight against any spiritualist. In the end, he encountered such an enemy today. He wasn't some legendary figure in the spirit world, but his methods had made them suffer greatly. They didn't even have a chance to fight back. Chen Zhao pinned them to the ground. When he came back to his senses, Quan Du was already lying on the ground. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't bring them back to his room. Instead, he opened the door next door Bifra's suite. Chen Zhao didn't kill them. Their injuries were neither light nor heavy, but at least they weren't dead. Tell me, who are you? Why did you attack me? These people clenched their teeth and persevered. No one made a sound. Chen Zhao picked up a gun and aimed it at one of the female team members' head. Even so, you still won't say? Stop. The leader finally yelled. If you dare to kill our people, you'll bring big trouble to yourself. No matter who you are, we won't let you go. Really? You're threatening me now, right? Chen Zhao didn't like being threatened. Stop. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Chen Zhao turned around and saw a few familiar people standing at the door. Warrencom, the Holy Knight, and his followers Harkinson, Wallace and Yuna. They were all old acquaintances who'd fought alongside him. Chen Zhao put the gun away and tilted his head to look at the acquaintances. Hi Chen, Yuna greeted Chen Zhao. Long time no see. Don't tell me they're your subordinates. No, but they're our colleagues, members of the Holy Knight's Eurasian branch. Warrencom, kill this guy. He attacked us. The Holy Knight on the ground roared. Chen Zhao glanced at the Knights Templars on the ground and pursed his lips. So narrow-minded. Warrencom, how about I kill them all and you pretend this never happened? What do you think? The Holy Knights on the ground were all shocked. Warrencom and the other three looked helpless. Alright, stop joking around. Let them all go. They attacked me just now. You're just going to let it go? Chen Zhao said, annoyed. It's a misunderstanding. You didn't actually get hurt or lost, right? But my heart is hurt. I'm depressed now. I was attacked by the Holy Knights I worked with before. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer, I won't be able to let it go. They just misanalyzed and thought you were an enemy, Warrencom explained helplessly. We're working closely with the Eurasian branch right now. When we heard the sniper's words, we also thought it was an unknown enemy. We didn't know it was you until we checked in at the hotel. To prevent both sides from getting hurt, we came to stop the conflict from escalating. Chen Zhao thought about it. Warrencom's explanation was acceptable. Of course, if it wasn't for Warrencom and the others, even if it was a misunderstanding, Chen Zhao would still kill them all. Chen Zhao helped the Templar up from the ground and patted the dust off him. Okay, it's a misunderstanding. You can go now. You'd better remember this. Before the leading Holy Knight could say anything, Chen Zhao clamped his mouth shut. Don't say anything else, or I'll kill you now. Even if you want to take revenge, you should do it secretly, right? The Holy Knights from the Eurasian branch all looked unhappy. After all, they'd been humiliated in front of their faces and couldn't fight back. Even their words had been blocked. It felt like a fishbone was stuck in their throats. The Holy Knights from the Eurasian branch left, but Warrencom and the others didn't. They clearly wanted to catch up with Chen Zhao. Of course, Chen Zhao also had some questions to ask them. Should I ask, or will you tell me yourself? Chen Zhao looked at the four before him. They'd worked together twice. They might not be like brothers, but they'd been through life and death, especially when they'd worked together for the first time against the Root of the Fallen. That battle had been full of danger. Back then, Chen Zhao wasn't very strong. Everyone had almost lost their lives in that battle. so they still had a deep trust. Otherwise, Chen Zhao wouldn't have let them go so easily. Chapter 2346. Warrencom and the others hesitated for a moment. After exchanging glances, Warrencom finally said, "This situation is a bit troublesome and highly confidential." Highly confidential? I love hearing confidential information. Come share it with me. Chen Zhao didn't know how to accommodate Warrencom at all. Not long ago, the great sage of the Knights Templar prophesied that a treasure is about to appear, and that it will bring disaster. This treasure comes from India's Shiva religion, and gave us some clues. What treasure? Chen Zhao was even more interested. Who didn't like treasures? If possible, Chen Zhao would be happy to put it in his pocket. I don't know. Maybe only the great sage knows what treasure it is. Our current mission is to find the key clues and people that the great sage mentioned. These clues and people will lead us to the treasure. In other words, you Templars came to Istanbul this time to play a treasure hunt. Chen Zhao wanted a clear time and place. It was best if he could directly fight for the treasure. He didn't want a treasure hunt, where all sorts of information were put together, and he had to guess and guess. So when Chen Zhao found out what Warrencom meant, his interest disappeared. Moreover, he still had doubts about the treasure that Warrencom mentioned. Maybe it was a treasure to them, but it was useless to him. After all, Chen Zhao wasn't the same as before. His power had increased, so had his horizons. The location of the treasure shouldn't be in Istanbul. We're here mainly because there are a few key people and key clues here. Are Clive and Ampa the key people you mentioned? You know that couple? Kind of, Chen Zhao said. What do you plan to do with them? We don't plan to hurt them. They're in danger now. India's Shiva people are chasing after them. We want to protect them. Until you find the treasure, right? You can say that if the treasure falls into the hands of evil people, there will be extremely serious consequences. So, we have to find it first and keep it safe. Chen Zhao had to admit that Warrencom's words were very Western. If others obtained it, they would all be evil and have bad intentions. Only if they obtained it could they maintain world peace and ensure safety. Of course, it was not wrong to think that way. It was safest to hold the weapon in one's own hands. Even if Chen Zhao was involved, he would have the same thought. When a person or a force stood at a certain height, they would no longer treat the person above them as a target. Instead, he treated the people below as his targets. It didn't matter if this person was hostile or not. As long as he posed a threat, he was an enemy. This was the Western way of thinking. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, had a pure Eastern mindset. This thing belonged to him. Of course, from the perspective of profit, he wasn't sure what it was. Chen Zhao really wasn't interested in spending too much effort and time fighting over a treasure that he didn't know what it was, or what it could be used for. Is stealing this treasure a big problem? Chen Zhao didn't understand why Warrencom was so serious. The trouble lies in the Hindu religion of Shiva, Warrencom said. This supreme treasure originated from them. Do you think they're willing to let their clan's supreme treasure be seized by outsiders? Then just give it back to them. They are not some evil religion. Those that could be passed down to the present and spread openly were religious doctrines that could be accepted by society, the government, and even most people. So Chen Zhao felt that he was the villain when the holy knights wanted to steal someone else's treasure. The key is that the Hindu religion of Shiva is in constant internal conflict. Many of the higher-ups are unclear about their intentions. Some extreme higher-ups are even trying to restore the Shiva doctrine of the past. Chen Zhao immediately understood what Warrencom meant. Many religions that seemed righteous now weren't so glorious in the past. Even the church had many dark secrets in the old era. Changing the doctrine to what it was in the past would be a small matter. A small matter could be a religious war, but a serious matter could cause the entire country, or even the world, to be shaken. Fortunately, the vast majority of people in this world were rational. Even in the Hindu religion, those extreme people were definitely the minority. Other than the internal conflict of the Hindu religion, there's another force that we holy knights have to be careful about. Oh, which one? The dragons, Warrencom said seriously. They're the most troublesome one. You're talking about the entire dragon race? Or individual dragons? Of course, it's individual dragons. Currently, the entire dragon race and humans have cooperated closely for the past few decades, so both sides are still in the honeymoon period. In the short term, the overall political stance of the dragon race will not change, but there are still some dragons who still have an arrogant attitude towards humans. And according to the prophecy of the great sage, there is an extreme dragon race force participating in the battle for the treasure this time. Hearing Warrenkam's words, Chen Zhao couldn't help but think of the attack on the fire worship sect's base. Would it be the same group of people? Their ultimate goal was that Indian Shiva's most precious treasure? Chen Zhao couldn't help but think of the magic book he'd taken from Argentero. Chen Zhao had thought that the higher-ups of Shiva wanted this magic book back. But the result was unexpected. This magic book was meaningless, both to Shiva and to Chen Zhao, a predator. It seemed that he had to discuss this with Baifla and old Zhang. He wanted to see what they thought. However, based on the current situation, everything was very unclear. Everyone only knew a little information. What Warrenkam knew was that the treasure came from Shiva. That was all Zhang Tianyi knew too. Right now, there should be 3 people who might know what the treasure was. The great guardian of Shiva, Deka Wendis, the dragon Udal Loken, who controlled everything from behind, and the great sage of the Holy Knights. However, the 3 of them were hiding behind the scenes like thieves. If Chen Zhao was really interested, he might go find one of them and find out more. However, Chen Zhao wasn't interested in it either, so he only treated it as gossip until now. Chen, help us. Yeah, Chen, we're looking forward to fighting with you again. Yuna also looked at Chen Zhao seriously. The other 2 old friends had the same look. Chapter 2347. The information that Warrenkam had given Chen Zhao was basically information that Chen Zhao already knew. Or rather, it was information that Chen Zhao wasn't interested in. Warrenkam and the others still treated Chen Zhao as the Chen Zhao of the past, although they didn't have any grudges or conflicts. However, there was still a gap between the 2 sides. Warrenkam and the others hoped that Chen Zhao could work with them again. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao rejected them this time. Even if Chen Zhao wanted to work together, he would work with Zhang Tianyi and Baifla. He wouldn't work with them. If they were to cooperate with the Holy Knights, they might be able to get their hands on the treasure one day. How would they split the benefits then? There was only one treasure, and the Holy Knights had to keep it in their hands. If they gave Chen Zhao a few cents as compensation, who could Chen Zhao complain to? But it was different if he worked with Zhang Tianyi and Baifla. Even if they wanted to keep the treasure, they could at least give him a decent compensation. Of course, it was obvious that Warrenkam and the others really wanted to fight alongside Chen Zhao again. But after Chen Zhao's direct rejection, he gave up on the idea. Chen Zhao didn't continue on this topic. After exchanging contact numbers with them, they left directly. When Chen Zhao returned to the balcony of his suite, Cliff and Ampa were nowhere to be seen. They'd probably been taken away by the Holy Knights. Chen Zhao continued to absorb the essence of the sun and moon on the balcony, but after he was full, he took out the magic book he'd gotten from Argentero. Because of the world wall, Chen Zhao could memorize the contents of the book, but the content couldn't connect him with the elements. The contents of the magic book were like lines of cold, lifeless mathematical formulas. Chen Zhao remembered that Baifla had once said that there were 2 conditions to break the world wall. The first condition was that he had enough power and could withstand the backlash from breaking the world wall by force. Chen Zhao already had this condition, but the second condition was much more complicated. It was a ritual to break the world. Not only was it complicated, but it also required a large amount of resources. The amount of resources depended on the strength of the world wall. For a super religion like India's Shiva, the strength of the world wall set by the sages would definitely be unimaginable. So the resources needed would be astronomical. Actually, Chen Zhao didn't doubt whether he could break the world wall. His strength was sufficient, and in terms of resources, he had a large amount of wealth in hell. Even if they lacked some resources, they could exchange with Beelzebub Zophie. As for how the ceremony should be carried out, he had people to consult. He now had a demon alchemist loyal to him, felt Nitak. If he still couldn't do it, She could look for the handsome boy or Beria for advice. The two of them would definitely be able to think of a solution. The reason why Chen Zhao was interested was because he felt something for this magic book. This mysterious feeling made Chen Zhao feel that he could learn something from it. Chen Zhao didn't know what he would get. But feelings were hard to say. It was just a moment of inspiration. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he was very sure. But breaking a world was no small matter. It consumed a lot of resources. Even Arhan Terrell, a follower of Shiva, had said that he couldn't cultivate. Therefore, he wasn't sure if he could gain anything. This was also why Chen Zhao hesitated. What if he wasted a lot of manpower and resources, and ended up with nothing? Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't be happy. Just then Chen Zhao's phone rang. It was West. West, can't you see what time it is? President, the last trial will start the day after tomorrow. Oh, what's the last trial? All the remaining team members will be randomly split up. They'll draw lots at the same time, and then have a one-on-one battle, West said. Oh, so why are you calling me? Now, only Hallease, an elite, and Gaia have qualified for the final round of trials. But the three of them have no confidence in the final round of the arena. What can I do? Motivate them? No, be our opponent. Are you sure? Chen Zhao didn't understand West's suggestion. He felt that the most important thing now was to motivate them. But if he sparred with them, it wouldn't be motivating them anymore. It would be beating them up. Others might not know, but West knew how difficult it was. Chen Zhao felt that sparring with them was meaningless. It might even have the opposite effect. If he wanted to find an opponent to spar with, he should find someone who was on par with him, or someone who wasn't that much stronger. Not someone like Chen Zhao as an opponent. If Chen Zhao sparred with them, the only thing he could do was stand where he was, and do nothing. Once Chen Zhao made a move, they would lose. They should know Chen Zhao's strength, not to mention going easy on him. Chen Zhao didn't know how to act. If he pretended to use a few moves, they would probably see through it immediately. It would only make them less confident. The three of them requested this. Why? They said that if they can get used to fighting with you, the other participants won't be able to pressure them. That's a new theory, but are you sure they can do it? Let's try. With their current emotions and fighting spirit, they might be eliminated in the first round. Okay, I'll go now. After all, Chen Zhao had brought the team here. He didn't have high hopes for them to participate in the Holy Glory battle this time. They didn't even pay much attention to them. But Chen Zhao still hoped that his team could get good results. Even if they didn't get the title of Holy Glory, at least they wouldn't lose too badly. Furthermore, looking at the bigger picture, the remaining three members of the supernatural organization were already the last fig leaf of the North American supernatural world. Looking at the other major regions in the spirit world, there were basically dozens of people from each major region who made it to the final round of the arena. Only the North American spiritual world had Gaia, Hallease, and an elite. If they were eliminated in the first round, the North American spiritual world would be in a slump for another 10 years. Of course, there was a more direct way to inspire the North American spiritual world. Let Chen Zhao participate in the Holy Glory battle. Chapter 2348. Clearly, Chen Zhao wouldn't participate. Even if he wanted to, Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary wouldn't let him. If Chen Zhao participated, with his personality, he would probably eliminate everyone from the other teams. Then he would leave all 10 spots for his own team members. Chen Zhao would definitely do something like that. Chen Zhao glanced at Zherlin on the bed. She was sleeping soundly at the moment. But Chen Zhao definitely couldn't leave her alone in the bedroom. So he used dark lava to gently lift her up. She wouldn't feel any strong movements. Soon, Chen Zhao carried Zherlin to the hotel, where the members of the supernatural organization were staying. There were also many spiritualists staying in this hotel. But it was different from the hotel Chen Zhao was staying in. This hotel was for the teams participating in the Battle of Holy Glory. It could be said that the organizers of the Battle of Holy Glory had booked the entire place. Chen Zhao knocked on West's door. The 10 team members were all in his room. Chen Zhao placed Zherlin in West's bedroom. Then he walked to the others. Gaia, how is it? Haven't you recovered? Chen Zhao realized that Gaia was in low spirits. He glanced at Elite and Helis, who were sitting side by side. They were also frowning. Gaia sighed. It's not about our condition. We just don't have much confidence in the upcoming arena trials. Chen Zhao was a bit surprised. He didn't think that even the usually confident Gaia would be so pessimistic. The arena trials can actually give you so much pressure? We've come into contact with quite a number of participants and seen quite a few battles. We realized that not only are many spiritualists strong, but they also have a strong restraining effect on us. It can't be that coincidental that you guys met them. Didn't they say that it's all random? It's random, West said. But it's also based on ability. Some special spiritualists can use magic to pick the right person. So the drawing isn't completely fair? That's right. The drawing of lots is a competition in itself. Even so, you shouldn't be completely unconfident. It's not to the extent of having no confidence at all, but it's just that I'm not confident, Gaia said. Okay. Since that's the case, let me help you build confidence again. Chen Zhao clapped his hands. Let's find a big place and spar. There's a large-scale barrier under the hotel that's specially used for spiritualists to spar and spar. There's actually such a place in the hotel? This hotel specializes in providing services for spiritualists. Not only is there a large-scale barrier, but there are also magic shops, spirit medium services, and magic trading centers. If there's a chance in the future, I should really come here and take a look. Of course, now is definitely not the time. After all, they still had business to attend to. The group arrived at the lowest level of the hotel. Judging from the environment, this should be the second floor of the underground garage. However, it had already been modified, and there were many signs of the supernatural world on it. Moreover, the only way to get down here was through the introduction of magic power in the elevator. The other entrances and exits were also sealed. This was to prevent ordinary people from accidentally entering this place. After all, the hotel was open to the public, and ordinary people would occasionally check in. At this hour, there were still people coming and going. Furthermore, all of them were spiritualists. It seemed that spiritualists were also nocturnal creatures. Where's the barrier? Chen Zhao asked. There's someone in charge there. Chen Zhao followed the group to a sealed area. Although the outside was blocked by walls, Chen Zhao's little world could still pass through them. However, when Chen Zhao's senses tried to go deeper, it was blocked by a pure magical barrier. This magical barrier was probably the barrier that West had mentioned. When the group arrived at the entrance, they were stopped by a female spiritualist from outside this area. Hi, Quinn, West greeted him. There's a team inside, the spiritualist called Quinn said. How much longer? West asked. Half an hour. Is there anyone else after that? Nope. Okay. Then we'll make a reservation in half an hour. Reserve 3 hours for us first. West paid the deposit and waited outside obediently with the group. Chen Zhao also waited obediently. He didn't plan on breaking the rules here. However, after half an hour, the people inside still didn't seem to want to come out. Why isn't it done yet? West looked at Quinn. Quinn was a bit unhappy too. She was the representative for the barrier. She relied on this to collect some fees and cash in the special area. Therefore, what she hated the most was other people dawdling. It was time, but they still didn't want to come out. Follow me. Quinn led the way inside. When Chen Zhao entered, he saw a magical barrier that covered an area of around 1,000 square meters. Inside the magic barrier, there were 5 to 6 spiritualists, and 2 of them were sparring with each other. Hey Moabi, Quinn called. Your time's up. Just then, a spiritualist came to the edge of the barrier. We still need to use it. We'll pay you after we go out. Quinn hesitated for a moment, and then shook her head. The rest of the time has been reserved. You have to leave and come out. Is it them? Moabi looked at West and the others. You're from North America. Let me think. Sorry, I don't remember. Moabi's expression was frivolous and provocative. Clearly, as the only representative of the supernatural world in North America, no one had high hopes for them in this spiritualist event. Many people even felt that the supernatural organization's team could participate not because of their strength. It was just because they were from North America. It was like the regional quota in football. Are you going to use the barrier too? What for? You're wasting time. Moabi continued to mock them without holding back. How about you leave this place to us? We'll show you what a high-end battle is. Moabi, you'd better watch your words. If you continue to speak so carelessly, I will forever refuse to let you and your team members use this venue. Quinn was doing business here. She didn't like Moabi's provocative and troublesome behavior. She hoped that everyone would follow her rules, pay honestly, and use the place without interfering with each other. The members of the supernatural organization were obviously very unhappy. Of course, Chen Zhao was the most unhappy. Open the barrier, Chen Zhao said. What? What are you doing? Going in to teach them a lesson. 9 Heavens, Divine King. Chapter 2349. Cain looked at West and the others. West was helpless. He wanted to say something, but Moabi spoke first. Teach me a lesson? I'll let you use one hand, Moabi said arrogantly. Or both hands. Is that enough? Moabi, I think you should just stand there and not move. Even if you don't do anything, he won't be able to beat you. Moabi's companions smiled. It seemed that they were very confident in Moabi's abilities. Of course, it was also because Chen Zhao and the others were spiritualists from North America. In the spiritual world, there was severe regional discrimination. For example, spiritualists from Wuxia, North America, and Europe would take a magic exam. One of the questions was, what should they do if they encountered an evil spirit? For the spiritualists from Wuxia and Europe, this was a technical question. For the spiritualists from North America, it was a math question, because the spiritualists from Wuxia and Europe would write down the methods to destroy the evil spirit. On the other hand, the spiritualists from North America would have to calculate how many people they would need to destroy the evil spirit. Although this was just a regional joke, it also showed how weak the spiritual world in North America was. Almost all major events in the spiritual world were ruled out from North America first. Even Cain, who was neutral right now, didn't have high hopes for Chen Zhao. Teach Moabi a lesson? He wasn't the strongest, but he had a certain reputation in the spiritual world. Chen Zhao actually lost his mind because of Moabi's provocation. However, Chen Zhao had actually lost his mind because of Moabi's provocation. Now, the people from the supernatural organization were already very displeased. Even the low-profile West didn't plan on stopping Chen Zhao anymore. Cain, we're using this barrier now, so we have the right to ask anyone to go up. Am I right? Cain looked hesitantly at Moabi and the others in the barrier. If you want us to leave, sure. Defeat any one of us. Moabi seemed to be certain that Chen Zhao and the others couldn't do anything to them, so he became even more arrogant. At the same time, he gave Chen Zhao a thumbs down. Everyone from the supernatural organization stared at Chen Zhao with a dark expression. Open the barrier. Chen Zhao's expression was also dark. He had never cultivated his heart and mind. Never. Chen Zhao's current strength didn't come from cultivating his mind. All of them had grown step by step through battles. In the end, Cain still opened the barrier. Moabi stared arrogantly at Chen Zhao, who had just entered the barrier. What, just you alone? Are you sure you don't want 2 helpers? If they come up, they'll stop me, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Stop you? That's right. For an idiot like you who is seeking death, they are indeed trying to stop you from doing stupid things. Cain looked at the people in the barrier and then at West. Are you sure you don't want to stop him? No, I think some people do need to suffer, West said matter-of-factly. Cain was also clear on whether West was referring to the Asian who had entered or Moabi, and the others when he said some people. She really couldn't see any chance of Chen Zhao winning. Chen Zhao walked toward Moabi. Can we start? Moabi was still arrogant, his hands behind his back. Come, you can start your attack. Chen Zhao wouldn't go easy on him. He suddenly charged towards Moabi and threw a punch. Bang! Instantly, Moabi's body stretched strangely. Then his entire body bounced out, smashing into the barrier and bouncing back. Surprised, Chen Zhao lifted his foot. Bang! Like a ball, Moabi was kicked away again. But after bouncing a few times on the opposite side of the barrier, he shot toward Chen Zhao again. Interesting. So it's a rubber man. Chen Zhao had heard of some special strengthening spells. This rubber man was clearly one of them. Like the main character in a certain comic, his body had the elasticity of rubber. Moreover, this elasticity didn't just work against physical attacks. Even magical attacks would be turned into potential energy by the rubber man. It was like borrowing force to fight force. No matter how much force the enemy used to hit him, he could use his elasticity to release it. He could also use the opportunity to bounce back. This was also why Moabi was so arrogant. He didn't care even if Chen Zhao had to use both hands. Chen Zhao sent Moabi flying again. This time, Chen Zhao's strength was 10 times stronger. The bouncing sound in the barrier was even clearer. Moreover, Moabi had lost control of the direction of his ejection. When Chen Zhao's strength was transmitted to him, he could clearly feel it. How terrifying was Chen Zhao's strength? At this moment, he finally couldn't laugh and talk as freely as before. 100 tons of force seemed to be easy for him. Let's try 500 tons of force. Pa 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 pa. Even the sound of Moabi's ejection changed. One of Moabi's companions was knocked down by Moabi and instantly lost consciousness. Hurry! Hurry! Help! Me! Stop! Moabi was actually speaking coherently, but his voice was blurred and sluggish. It was mainly because he'd ejected too quickly. He'd completely lost control of his body. Even 500 tons of force didn't completely break him down. Hiss! Try 1,000 tons. Chen Zhao punched again. This time, the sound was extremely dull. Moabi coughed out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, 3 of his companions had lost consciousness because of his ejection. This time, Chen Zhao didn't make him eject in all directions. Instead, he made him eject in a straight line. It was like bouncing a ball against a wall. No matter how fast Moabi's ejection was, Chen Zhao could still keep up with his punch. Pa pa pa, the barrier flickered. Kane's expression changed slightly. This was a sign that the barrier's magic was unstable. However, the barrier was so strong that it was almost indestructible. Chen Zhao suddenly increased his strength by 10 times. Boom! This time Kane didn't bounce back. Instead, he was embedded into the barrier. The barrier didn't completely recover. A human-shaped hole appeared in it. The hole was filled with cracks. West watched all this calmly. At the same time, he took out a check. Sorry for breaking your barrier. The supernatural organization isn't very strong, but we have money. Moabi's surviving companions heard West's words and felt that they were extremely harsh. Chapter 2350. Chen Zhao looked at those people. He clenched his fists so hard that they cracked. However, those few people felt their blood run cold when they heard it. How strong was Moabi? They knew it the best. Actually, Moabi's attack power was average. However, his passive counterattack ability was something that few people could withstand. However, Moabi had suffered a lot today. Chen Zhao had basically used his upper limit to defeat him. Are you going to scram? Or do I have to throw you out? Chen Zhao asked the spiritualists. The spiritualists lowered their heads and fled with the unconscious Moabi and a few other companions. However, Chen Zhao still felt a bit strange. He knew how much power he'd used. In terms of damage tolerance alone, Moabi was already higher than everyone else in the supernatural organization's team. And it wasn't just a little bit. It was much higher. Even Gaia, who had the best defense, only had a defense limit of 100 tons when she transformed into her dragon form. But when Chen Zhao had attacked Moabi, he'd used 5,000 tons of power. What did that mean? Moabi's defense limit was 50 times higher than Gaia's. Of course, it didn't mean that Moabi was 50 times stronger than Gaia. It could only be said that Moabi was specialized in this. But if one ability was outstanding, he would have a corresponding breakthrough in other areas too. Chen Zhao was sure that Moabi's other areas were extraordinary. And this was just one person. In the final trial of the Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones, there were many spiritualists more outstanding and powerful than Moabi. It was no wonder that Gaia, Helis, and an elite were so dispirited. Of course, every spell had its own weakness, or a magic system that countered it. They couldn't be absolutely invincible. Helis, Gaia, and an elite worked together. But they couldn't do any damage to Chen Zhao. Helis Abyss demons were once Chen Zhao's opponents. However, the current abyssal demons were a thing of the past. Chen Zhao was now many times more powerful than before. In the past, the demons could at least harm Chen Zhao. But now, this unconscious body only had 70% of its power when it was alive. It couldn't harm Chen Zhao at all. Gaia's strongest form was her dragon form. However, even if she transformed into a dragon, she would only be in the form of a young dragon. Her body could only reach about 15 meters. Coupled with dragon's might and dragon's breath, he displayed impressive combat prowess. However, Gaia in his dragon form was not that powerful. As for an elite, he really had no advantage over Chen Zhao in terms of speed. However, the battle between the four of them was full of tricks. After all, they were the top fighters of the supernatural organization. After such a long period of cultivation, they had each grasped or developed some trump cards. Of course, he wouldn't use these trump cards on Chen Zhao. Putting aside whether or not it would be effective against Chen Zhao, using their trump cards would put a certain burden on themselves. They didn't want their condition to decline before the final trial arena opened. Actually, they weren't trying to find any secrets from him. Or they could ask Chen Zhao to give them advice. In fact, Chen Zhao couldn't give them any advice. From start to finish, Chen Zhao had been fighting straightforwardly. He didn't use any fancy moves or techniques. It could even be said that Chen Zhao wasn't stronger than any of them in terms of battle techniques. Chen Zhao was able to defeat them purely because of his superior level. They wanted pressure. They wanted to work hard to adapt to Chen Zhao's pressure. If one day, they could adapt to Chen Zhao's attacks, then, they might not be invincible. But there was almost no one who could defeat them. This was what they needed. So Chen Zhao suppressed his power as much as possible. At the same time he suppressed the three of them. After fighting for 3 hours, Gaia, Halley's and Angelite's only achievement was destroying Chen Zhao's expensive clothes. They'd already used up all their magic and stamina. On the other hand, Chen Zhao stood there half-naked. West and the others stood outside the barrier. After a while they turned around and went out, spending another 3 hours. After a short rest, Gaia, Halley's and an elite started a new round of attacks. But it was too slow for them to recover like this. Chen Zhao used his domain to forcibly recover their magic. Of course, this method of forcibly restoring mana was not that wonderful. It was like a person being forced to eat food. Chen Zhao was used to this kind of intense recovery, but it didn't mean that others could get used to it. No, it wasn't a habit. It was more like acceptance. To Chen Zhao, it was as simple as breathing. But to Gaia, Halley's and Halley's, it was like using a balloon to inflate their bodies. 3 hours passed. Another 3 hours passed. From early morning to the evening of the next day, apart from asking West to take care of Jerlin, Chen Zhao didn't spend any other time with them. He spent the rest of the time with Gaia, Halley's and an elite. But it was about time. If they continued, they'd really be hurt badly. Even if Chen Zhao could continuously recover their magic. But their willpower and physical fatigue had reached their limits. If they continued, they'd really be crippled. Chen Zhao gave them some medicine so that they could rest. He basically had nothing to do with the supernatural organizations team. After dinner, Chen Zhao carried Jerlin out to the night market. Istanbul also had a bustling night market. Different from most European and American cities, Istanbul's night market had more of an Eastern atmosphere. Chen Zhao carried Jerlin to a rather famous local night market. When the father and daughter arrived, there was already a sea of people. The not-so-spacious market was packed with people. Everyone basically brushed shoulders with each other. Chen Zhao could only put Jerlin on his neck. Jerlin was in charge. If she wanted to buy something, Chen Zhao would just snort. Papa, Papa, go there, go there. Which way? Over there. The one with the colorful sign. What's that for sale? Even Chen Zhao couldn't unleash his domain in such a chaotic environment. When he looked up, he could only see other people's heads. Right there, right there. Go forward. Chen Zhao carried Jerlin and squeezed through the crowd. Finally, he stopped before the shop Jerlin pointed at. However, This shop didn't fit in with the atmosphere of the market. The lights were dim, and there weren't many people inside. Chapter 2351. The shop wasn't big, but it looked like an alley. Especially under the dim light that alternated between light and dark. It looked very deep. Chen Zhao walked into the shop. There were many masks on both sides of the shop. But looking at the masks, Chen Zhao found them rather strange. Chen Zhao picked up a mask and tried it on his face. But he could still feel faint magic from the mask. This wasn't a normal shop. Chen Zhao didn't know what the mask was for. He didn't dare to let Zhilin play with it. The masks looked very creepy. Who knew if there would be something bad? Chen Zhao looked around and realized that there was someone in the corner of the shop. The person was sharpening a mask with a file. He also had faint magic on him. His tools and materials were all messily placed. He wore a pair of thick glasses. There were also a dozen different masks hanging on his waist. When he saw Chen Zhao, he was first stunned. Then he looked at the mask in Chen Zhao's hand. Spiritualist? The person asked uncertainly. Chen Zhao nodded. You too? Sort of. What do you mean sort of? Chen Zhao asked. I can feel the magic on you. I'm not a traditional sorcerer or sorcerer. It's only because my ancestors have mastered a special skill that I was able to come into contact with the supernatural world. However, I don't know any magic or sorcery. We call ourselves the mask sorcerers. Special skill? Are you talking about this mask? Yes, the masker said. What's the use of this mask? To change one's aura, the masker said. It's like what we often say. Some superstar has a strong aura, or someone has a good aura. With that, the masker held the half-finished mask in front of Chen Zhao. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt that the person behind the mask was a cultured professor. But the mess on him made him look like he'd just finished an experiment in the lab. The masked master put down the mask in his hand. In an instant, his unique aura disappeared. He turned back into the unkempt craftsman. Papa, I want that. Give it to me. Zhilin pointed at the mask hanging on the wall excitedly. Even children can wear it. This isn't meant to be worn. It's effective as long as it's on the person's body. The one in my hand is a half-finished product. As for children, this mask only changes the person's temperament. It won't change anything else, so it's meaningless to children. Because a person's first sense is their vision. When people see a child, they take it for granted that the person is a child. When their first sense can't determine the person's identity, their feelings will take over. This mask is misleading, not a scam. Fine. Apart from scamming, I can't think of any other use for this mask. Chen Zhao shrugged with a smile. The masked master shrugged casually. If you insist, then there's nothing I can do. Papa, I want. Zhilin looked at Chen Zhao, feeling wronged. Chen Zhao completely ignored her request. Fine. How much is this mask? Chen Zhao took a mask off the wall. This mask was very characteristic of China. It looked like a fox. This mask isn't suitable for children. Take that one. The masker pointed to a mask not far away. Buy that one. It's 50 NIS. Chen Zhao saw the mask artist pointing at a cartoon mask. Darling, do you like that one? Not really, but I'll take it. And that one. Zhilin didn't reject anything. It seemed like even children couldn't resist cartoons. It was the same for little Zhilin. The masks she chose were all cartoon masks. Are these magic masks too? No, those are normal masks. My shop isn't just open to spiritualists. I'll take all of them. How much are they? I'll give you 200 NIS. After paying the bill, Chen Zhao carried Zhilin out. However, Chen Zhao felt a bit awkward. He didn't know what it was, but it was just awkward. Zhilin, on the other hand, was quite satisfied with the masks she'd gotten. She even wore a Conan mask. Chen Zhao turned back to look at the shop. He couldn't figure out what exactly was awkward. However, not long after, he saw a large group of police officers appear in front of him. The police officers were blocking and isolating the market. At the same time they came over. Of course, they weren't here for Chen Zhao. Instead, they went to the mask shop. Then the police cordoned off the entrance of the shop. Chen Zhao stopped and looked at the shop. Chen Zhao also covered the shop with his senses. However, he realized that his senses couldn't penetrate deep into the shop. Not long after, more than 10 spiritualists arrived at the scene. The dozen or so spiritualists seemed to be related to the government. They took out their identification and showed it to the police, and the police left. Then the spiritualists took over the scene. They should be similar to the supernatural organization and had deep connections with the local government. 2 of them set up a barrier around the cordoned area. The barrier could prevent normal people from seeing what was going on inside. However, it was useless against Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao saw the spiritualists carry a few corpses out. They gave Chen Zhao the feeling that they were normal people. They didn't have any magical aura. Even if they were dead, if they were spiritualists, there would still be some magic left in them a few days after they died. However, the corpses didn't show any signs of decomposition. They should have died in 1 or 2 days. However, they didn't have any magical power, so they should be normal people. What made Chen Zhao very uncomfortable was that the faces of the corpses were all bloody. It looked like they'd been skinned. Chen Zhao immediately had a bad feeling. He took off Zherlin's mask. Zherlin was young, but she was smart. She'd also learned a lot by following Chen Zhao. Therefore, she seemed to have thought of something, and she looked unhappy. Zherlin was unhappy, but Chen Zhao was even more unhappy. There were very few things that could make Chen Zhao lose. This time, the father and daughter had clearly been tricked by the masker. Damn it, don't let that asshole fall into my hands. Chen Zhao was filled with hatred. He made up his mind. If he met the masker again, he would pull out his tendons and skin him alive. Just then, another group of people came. Chen Zhao was quite familiar with the leader of this group, the 23rd Blood Mary. Chapter 2352. The 23rd Blood Mary was also surprised to see Chen Zhao here. She told her people to go in first while she walked toward Chen Zhao. Grandma Mary. Little Zherlin still called out obediently. The 23rd generation Blood Mary also showed a gentle and kind smile to little Zherlin. Darling, you're here too. 23rd generation Blood Mary took over and carried little Zherlin. Chun, let's sit over there. Okay. Along the way, the 23rd generation Blood Mary hypnotized little Zherlin. The two found a bench by the street and sat down. Chun, did you get the news and come here first? News? What news? Mary 23 turned to look at Chen Zhao. She was trying to tell if Chen Zhao was playing dumb, or if he really didn't know. After a while Mary said, Nine-tailed fox Tamamonome appeared in Istanbul. Chen Zhao's expression was very interesting. First he was shocked, then confused, and then angry. Suddenly, he understood the source of the awkwardness he felt just now. The mask maker he saw was none other than Tamamonome. He should have guessed it long ago. Her first reaction when she saw him was shock. That wasn't a reaction when she saw a guest. If she was a real mask maker, she should have gotten used to guests. Neither a normal person nor a spiritualist should have that reaction. She'd recognized him, which was why she'd reacted like that. She didn't expect him to appear here either. She didn't expect to reunite under such circumstances. Chen Zhao didn't notice it. It was because of her aura. She didn't just change her appearance. Her aura was also different. She was like a real mask maker. She'd also hinted that the real use of the mask wasn't to wear it on the face. She just had to carry it with her. She'd also had a dozen masks hanging on her waist. But this way, Chen Zhao owed her a favor. She knew that the masks were made of human skin. That was why she'd dissuaded him from buying those masks for Zherlin. Why is she here? I don't know. Then how do you know she's here? Chen Zhao didn't completely believe everything the 23rd Blood Mary said. This old woman was as good at tricking people as Zhang Tianyi. Mary, the 23rd generation, could also feel Chen Zhao's distrust. He said, I really don't know why Tamamo no Mei is here. We received a call from her. She called the Holy Glory organization and said that she was here. If we didn't come quickly, she would start killing people. That's why we rushed here. Are you saying that she exposed her whereabouts on her own? And on purpose? The 23rd Blood Mary added. We couldn't figure out her intentions either. Then, the Istanbul Orthodox Church sent people over. They were the ones you saw just now. Then I took over. The 23rd generation Blood Mary paused and said, Then we found those bodies. Did Tamamonome kill him? We can't come to a conclusion yet, but our preliminary judgment is that she wasn't the one who killed it, but the owner of the shop. The 23rd generation Blood Mary's face was pale. The owner of the shop is making his horrible and twisted masks with human skin. Moreover, we also found a large number of remains under the turf behind the shop. There were hundreds of them, and the time span of the victims spanned decades. What about the owner of the mask shop? He's dead. He was probably killed by Tamamo no Mae. In other words, Tamamo no Mae's role in this incident isn't that of a villain? Instead, she's a positive person who reveals the dark truth? And she even killed the bastard who caused the massacre? That seems to be the case. The 23rd generation Blood Mary nodded. But don't you think it's suspicious? A powerful demon would actually come all the way to Istanbul and cause trouble for a butcher who has nothing to do with her. It's not normal no matter how I think about it. Chen Zhao also found it unusual. Imagine a battle maniac suddenly coming to a small village to punish evil and promote good. It wouldn't be a simple righteous act. In terms of evil, the owner of the mask shop might not be as evil as Tamamo no Mae. So, even Chen Zhao believed that Tamamo no Mae had her own motives. This was also why the 23rd generation Blood Mary was nervous. After all, if Tamamo no Mae had any tricks up her sleeves, it wouldn't be a small fight. Even the 23rd generation Blood Mary wasn't confident that she could handle it. After all, Tamamo no Mae was still in the dark. One could only be a thief for 1,000 days, not a thief for 1,000 days. Not to mention that Tamamo no Mae was hiding, even if she revealed her true form and caused a ruckus in Istanbul. That would cause a terrifying earthquake. As for Chen Zhao, he was quite dissatisfied with Tamamo no Mae's concealment. However, he was completely uninvolved in this matter. Even if he had some grudges with Tamamo no Mae, it didn't mean that he had to get involved. Chen Zhao would never do something that would bring trouble to himself. The 23rd generation Blood Mary had seen Chen Zhao appear nearby and thought that he knew something. If Chen Zhao could get involved, it would be a great help to her. After all, Chen Zhao had defeated Tamamo no Mae before, so he had the most right to speak on Tamamo no Mae's matter. But when she heard Chen Zhao's reply, she was instantly disappointed. Not only did Chen Zhao know nothing about it, but from his attitude, it was clear that he planned to stay out of it. Of course, Chen Zhao stayed out of it because of Tamamo no Mae. He had defeated Tamamo no Mae before. But Tamamo no Mae had 2 divine weapons, especially the Kusanagi sword. It was a weapon that could make Chen Zhao feel threatened. If it wasn't necessary, Chen Zhao really didn't want to fight to the death with Tamamo no Mae. Tamamo no Mae was too dangerous. She also had the other divine weapon, Yada no Kagami. Tamamo no Mae might have already figured out how to use the 2 divine weapons. If Chen Zhao wasn't careful, he might end up in her hands. Do you have any other information? Seeing that she couldn't convince Chen Zhao to get involved, Mary could only take a step back and hope that she could get some useful information. Chen Zhao thought back to the entire process of meeting Tamamo no Mae's mask master in the mask shop. Suddenly, Chen Zhao remembered the fox mask. Little Jerlin had wanted it, but Tamamo no Mae had stopped her. Judging from the texture and feel of the mask, it should be an item from a long time ago. It shouldn't have been made from the skin of the victims. Could the fox mask be related to Tamamo no Mae's operation this time? Chapter 2353. Chen Zhao didn't tell 23rd Blood Mary about this. Not far away, the mask shop kept bringing out items. Everything was packed up. 23rd Blood Mary hurried to take care of it. Chen Zhao didn't linger either. He carried Jerlin and left. He passed by the coastal park. The lights were dim here. There were many tourists. It looked like the night view of the coastal cities in China. Not far away, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged on a stone block. Chen Zhao walked over to the woman. When he reached the stone block, he looked up at the woman. "Long time no see," Chen Zhao greeted her. The woman wore jeans and a strapless top. She supported her chin with one hand. Her hair fell over her shoulders and waist. She had some makeup on, but she looked extremely flirtatious. "I'm surprised," the woman said coolly. "I didn't think we'd meet again like this." "I didn't think we'd meet again," It's fate, I guess. Chen Zhao also smiled faintly. His gaze landed on the woman's waist. He could faintly see the fox mask under her hair. Thank you for helping me get this mask. Chen Zhao was a bit surprised. It's hanging there. Anyone can get it. I can't think of a reason to thank me. Your daughter is a guide and you're a spellbreaker. I waited in that shop for 3 days, but couldn't find the mask until you and your daughter appeared. You mean some kind of spell was cast on the mask? Yes. Then what does the mask mean to you? The green hill leaves, the white bones mourn, the endless yellow sand, the golden millet in my dream, the long way home. The mirage is ethereal, the tearful eyes, the green gauze curtain. What's this poem called? I've never heard of it. Is there more? Chen Zhao really didn't know much about poetry. He'd never heard of the woman's poem either. Whatever, you're a common person. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Chen Zhao pouted. Fuck. You're calling me a common person, just because I've never heard of this poem? That's too much. The woman stood up. I'm leaving. Okay, goodbye. I made those masks. They're just ordinary toys. After I came out of the seal, I learned some craftsmanship in Japan. Did you throw them away? The woman looked at Chen Zhao unhappily. No. Chen Zhao took out the mask. He had placed it in his spatial ring. The woman nodded in satisfaction. Your daughter is so talented. How about becoming my disciple? Hee hee. If you don't want to, then so be it. It's not good to be so sarcastic. If a woman was unhappy, Chen Zhao wouldn't accommodate her. Although they couldn't be considered as mortal enemies, they couldn't be considered friends either. What's more, this woman had a notorious reputation. Letting his daughter be her disciple would really have no future. The woman pulled a strand of hair from her head. It's for your daughter. I've seen stingy people, but I've never seen someone so stingy. Chen Zhao's face twitched. Is your hair made of gold? Guanyin Bodhisattva gave the monkey at least 3 strands of hair. And you only gave 1 strand of hair? This strand of hair of mine is a secret technique of the Green Mountains. It's called black hair, not in vain. What's the use? As long as you wear an accessory with this strand of hair, you won't be deceived. Chen Zhao was a bit stunned. Then he licked his face and accepted the strand of hair happily. I have a daughter. I plan to have a few more in the future. Your hair seems pretty good. The woman's face twitched. She turned into a wisp of smoke. Fuck, she ran so fast. Chen Zhao murmured, recalling the poem the woman had just chanted. This woman was too strange. Or was there something hidden in the poem? If he looked at it literally, it was like the inner monologue of someone who was looking for a way home. Tamamo Mei was looking for a way home? Legend had it that the nine-tailed fox's hometown was Qingqiu, but according to modern scholars, the legendary Qingqiu should be in Gaoqing County, Hezi Shandong. How could there be miles of yellow sand in Shandong? Whatever. This had nothing to do with him. He shouldn't think too much. Chen Zhao shook his head. This wasn't his expertise either. Even Fei Lai might be better at it than him. Fei Lai's lips moved from feng shui to studying metaphysics and ancient Wuxia supernatural theories. Chen Zhao decided to talk to Fei Lai later and see if she could discover anything. The next day was the final trial of the Battle of the Holy Glory. All the participants would enter the final ring. All the teams were split up to draw lots, so it was possible to draw one of their own team members during the draw. Of course, even during the drawing of lots, there was no lack of Dharma spells and divine powers. As long as one was capable, it was possible to get a bye. This seemed like cheating, but it was actually giving some people a chance. Some people were just not good at fighting. They'd had to go through so many difficulties. Now that they were good at something, and were forbidden from using what they were good at, the Battle of the Holy Glory would be meaningless. They could just set up a ring at the beginning. The Battle of the Holy Glory was a grand event in the spiritual world, because the decennial Battle of the Holy Glory didn't just choose the strongest person. Of course, the one with the strongest combat power had a great advantage. Just like the church's team, Matthew's team members were extremely strong and rarely had a worthy opponent. Thus, they were the seeded team for this Battle of the Holy Glory. But there were a few seeded teams and many dark horse teams. In short, it was like the 8 immortals crossing the sea. Whoever had the ability to walk to the end and stand in the final ring with their own abilities had nothing to say. The final trial wasn't held in the Four Seasons Palace. Instead, it was in another alternate space. It was a vast and boundless grassland. Chen Zhao carried little Zhilin. When he came to this alternate space, he was even a bit surprised. In terms of area, this alternate space was even larger than the Wasteland Market. Of course, in terms of scale, it definitely couldn't compare to the Wasteland Market. The Wasteland Market had projections of buildings in the real world. It was a masterpiece created by the efforts of countless spiritualists over thousands of years. The alternate space they were in now was very simple. There were only lush turf and sunlight shining in from the real world. Spiritualists kept coming in from the outside. They were more or less like Chen Zhao. They were all spectators. The participants of the Battle of the Holy Glory had already come last night. They came here first mainly to familiarize themselves with the environment. Just then a figure appeared in the sky. The figure appeared from the source of light. Under the illumination of the light, it looked extremely majestic. "It's Grandpa Celestial Master," Zhilin shouted, pointing at the figure in the sky. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2354. Today, Zhang Tianyi was dressed in traditional Taoist clothing. He wore a white robe and held a horsetail whisk in one hand and a sword hilt in the other. He wore a jade crown on his head, and his gaze was sharp and solemn. Zhang Tianyi stepped through the air, and everyone immediately made way for him. Zhang Tianyi waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and a wisp of clear air spread out. Everyone felt a wave of fresh air brushing past their faces. "Tianzhao Yuanjing, therefore you have thoughts. Only the three pure ones can flourish. May you always be with me." The moment Zhang Tianyi opened his mouth, he spoke a Taoist mantra. Most of the people present did not understand what he was saying. Chen Zhao vaguely remembered that there was such a passage in a Taoist book he had bought for Fei Lai. It wasn't that Chen Zhao had seen it before. Fei Lai had read it when she was studying. This book seemed to be called The Records of the Supreme True Words of the Three Pure Ones. When Chen Zhao had first heard Fei Lai read it, he had felt that it was choppy, and he couldn't understand it at all. But when Zhang Tianyi recited this, Chen Zhao felt the surrounding spiritual qi move around Zhang Tianyi. At this moment, someone in the crowd cried out in alarm. "Heavens, I've broken through. Great Celestial Master, please accept my bow." After saying that, the man bowed his head and kowtowed. He kept knocking his head on the turf, knocking it again and again. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. Was this guy hired by Zhang Tianyi? At this moment, people in the crowd broke through one after another. Only then did Chen Zhao believe that Zhang Tianyi wasn't bluffing with his Taoist words just now. It really had a magical effect. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao didn't feel anything. "All right, you can all leave." Zhang Tianyi waved his horsetail whisk again, and all the people who were kneeling on the ground were lifted up by an invisible hand. Zhang Tianyi took a few more steps forward and stopped again. Earth fighting formation, gold probing hand, 10,000 nourishing water. Zhang Tianyi threw out a small gold nugget. The gold nugget began to twist and wriggle as it grew larger. It was originally the size of a fist, but in the blink of an eye, it became the size of a basketball. In the next instant, the squirming thing suddenly exploded, and a large amount of water gushed out. The water seemed to be endless as it spread in all directions. But when he reached the crowd, he stopped. Skywall limit, water shape, 1,000 trees fill the top. Soon after, a towering tree grew out of the swamp. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have thought that it was a 1,000-year-old tree. However, under the urging of Zhang Tianyi's spell, the towering tree once again ignited with raging flames. What Zhang Tianyi used was the five-elemental Dharma, although the five-elemental Dharma was a relatively common Dharma spell in Taoism. But when Zhang Tianyi used it, it was miraculous and extraordinary, as if it was an immortal technique. Using that small and ordinary piece of gold to create a swamp was exactly in line with the five elements' mutual generation of metal and water. Then, water gave birth to wood, wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. Of course, the gung metal was no longer ordinary gold. Instead, it was an extremely rare material. Grandpa Heavenly Master's spells are so fun. I want to learn them too. Then he's doing magic. I really don't know if he's bored or something. Chen Zhao scoffed. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao from afar. It was noisy, but Zhang Tianyi still heard Chen Zhao's words. But now was not the time to argue with Chen Zhao. Holding the gung metal in his hand, Zhang Tianyi said, "This is the gung metal of the 5 elements. Celestial Master, why did you forge this in front of everyone?" No one dared to question Zhang Tianyi at all. They did not think that Zhang Tianyi's actions were confusing. They only felt that they were not smart enough to understand Zhang Tianyi's intentions. In addition to this piece of gung metal, I've also hidden 4 other 5 elemental extraordinary items here. They are water element, fire element, stone element, and wood element. If these 5 elemental extraordinary items are combined into one, they will be able to break through all defensive techniques in the world and seal the opponent's 5 elemental energy. Hearing Zhang Tianyi's words, everyone was in an uproar. Force control spells were actually defensive spells. In other words, no matter what spell the opponent used, it could be broken. Moreover, it could seal the opponent's 5 elements' power. In other words, as long as it was metal, wood, water, fire, and earth spells, they would all be sealed. This was equivalent to taking off the opponent's clothes and tying them up so that they could not attack. After all, most spells in the world were related to or branched from the 5 elements. Even though the Western spiritual world did not have the 5 elements theory, most spells still followed the principle of the 5 elements reinforcing and restraining each other. As long as you're a fellow Taoist here, you can search for these 5 wondrous items. As long as you find 4 of them and combine them with this gung metal in my hand, you'll be able to form the Spellbreaker hairpin. The item will belong to whoever manages to form it. Also, if you're a participant in the Battle of Holy Glory, as long as you successfully form the Spellbreaker hairpin, you'll be able to obtain the title of Holy Glory. The crowd was in an uproar again. Celestial Master, I don't mean to offend you, but your rule is unfair to most spiritualists. After all, if it was just a competition in the ring, it would still be a competition of strength. But if the title of Holy Glory Cultivator was decided this way, the final outcome would become very complicated. Individual combat ability would no longer be the deciding factor. This was why many people felt that it was unfair. But Zhang Tianyi did not think so. I'm giving those participants who aren't good at fighting a chance. If anyone has any objections, you can step forward. I'm not being unreasonable. Zhang Tianyi said that he was being reasonable, but his attitude was completely unreasonable. He was not discussing with others at all. He was just here to inform them. At the same time, Zhang Tianyi raised his right hand, and the originally flat turf suddenly bulged. A slope appeared in front of everyone. Zhang Tianyi casually waved his hand, and the originally uneven slope was suddenly cut off. The slope became flat and smooth. This move directly dissuaded those who were about to argue with Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi flew above the platform and used a divine ability to divide the platform into 5 parts. Each part of the platform was engraved with the words metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now, I'm going to talk about the rules of this ring, Zhang Tianyi said. These 5 rings correspond to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. If your magic attribute happens to correspond to the 5 elements, then you will be automatically enhanced or suppressed. Of course, in addition to choosing your opponent, each contestant also needs to choose a ring. If you are defeated or fall off the ring, you will lose. If the winner kills the opponent, it will also be regarded as being eliminated and will be severely punished. So you'd better not take revenge in the ring. If any of you think you can escape from the old Taoist's eyes, just do it. Alright, let's start drawing lots now. Because there are a total of 510 participants, there will be 2 people in the first round who will advance directly. As for the losers, they will be directly eliminated. There are no revival matches in this ring, so please take each match seriously. Chapter 2355. Then it was time to draw lots. Just like Zhang Tianyi had said, as long as you were capable, you could do whatever you wanted. The participants of the Battle of Holy Glory didn't even hide it when they drew lots. They openly used magic to draw lots. Of course, some people were happy while others were worried. Not every participant knew how to use this kind of magic. In fact, most spiritualists weren't good at it. Just the first round of drawing lots took a few hours. Then it was time for the 5 rings, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, to compete at the same time. Apart from Zhang Tianyi, who was hosting the matches, there were also a few disciples from Dragon Tiger Mountains, Celestial Master Sect, in charge of recording the results of each ring. After the first match, the next team took over without any delay. There were more or less spectators gathered around each arena. Of course, there were also some participants of the Battle of Holy Glory. Most of them were observing some of the stronger opponents. That way, they would be prepared. Of course, there were also some people who wanted to hide their strength. However, those who were able to survive until now were not weak. Apart from a few extremely strong ones, and a few extremely weak ones, middle-class spiritualists were still the majority. Therefore, those who wanted to hide their strength were mostly thrown off the ring before they could use their trump cards. Chen Zhao went to the fire ring. Gaia was in this ring. Halle's and an elite had already competed. They were quite lucky. Their opponents weren't weak, but they'd all defeated them. Gaia was the third. Gaia had the blood of a fire dragon, so the fire ring was like adding wings to a tiger for her. The fire ring released high temperatures, and the intense fire elements in the surroundings allowed Gaia to use 120% of her strength. Gaia's opponent was a spiritualist who specialized in mind magic. Mind magic was very difficult to defend against. Most of the time, the victim didn't even know it. However, it required high concentration when casting mind magic. The special environment made it hard for the spiritualist to concentrate. The temperature in the fire ring was 70 degrees. Plus, the surging fire elements made it extremely difficult for him to cast spells. Gaia's Firebird could counteract the impact of mind magic. In terms of individual strength, magic characteristics, and environment, Gaia had the absolute upper hand. Gaia had already gained the absolute upper hand. Chen Zhao was surprised. In the previous 2 matches, when Halle's and an elite had fought, Chen Zhao had been surprised. Helis' opponent was relatively weak, so Helis won easily. Next was Angelite's match. The arena was made of wood, and both sides were proficient in the rarer enhanced speed attribute, so the match became a pure competition of speed. In the end, an elite crushed his opponent with an absolute advantage, and won relatively easily. Looking at Gaia, the environment, strength, and opponents, Gaia had crushed their opponents in almost every aspect. Chen Zhao didn't believe that all 3 of them were so lucky. Since all 3 of them had chosen such an opponent at the same time, Chen Zhao believed that someone had arranged it. They didn't have foresight, prophecy, or any magic related to luck. Therefore, Chen Zhao believed that they wouldn't have won so easily if no one had arranged it. There was even a high chance that he would lose. He had watched many arena matches before. It could be said that there were many opponents on the same level as them. At least 40% of the participants were on par with them. If they were to fight, they would have a 50% chance of winning. About 5% of the participants were obviously above average in terms of strength. The remaining 1% were overwhelmingly stronger than them. They weren't even on the same level as them. Of course, there were also 10% who weren't strong enough and stayed until the last round due to various reasons. However, all 3 of them had met this 10%, or the other 40% who weren't strong enough. Chen Zhao could only believe that there must be some shady business involved. Of course, as the winner, he and the supernatural organization definitely wouldn't announce it to the world. Chen Zhao couldn't help but look at the central area surrounded by the 5 arenas. At the moment, no one entered the empty space. There was only a chair and a wooden table, with a tea table in the huge space. Zhang Tianyi just sat there, sipping his tea with a leisurely look on his face. As if sensing Chen Zhao's gaze, Zhang Tianyi gave Chen Zhao a meaningful smile from afar. Chen Zhao spat silently. Gaia didn't have any other thoughts about this opponent. After all, she didn't know how strong her opponent was, so she transformed in the fire arena. When she turned into a fire dragon, many people around the arena gasped. After all, spiritualists with dragon blood were very rare. One could even say that they were the only ones. Of course, there were actually many cases of humans and dragons mating. Some of them also gave birth to offspring, but most of them were humans. Because dragons had low fertility, even if they mated with other races, most of their offspring would be from other races. For example, Gaia's parents were actually ordinary people. It was just that one of her ancestors was a dragon. The dragon blood in her body was already very thin. It was only awakened in her generation. This was why awakened people with dragon blood were so rare. The spiritualists below gasped. Of course, they were surprised but not shocked. After all, they were spiritualists and had seen everything. The mind mage's expression changed when he saw Gaia's fire dragon form. He was already listless. Facing Gaia, he could feel the dragon's might surrounding him. He couldn't even release his spiritual power completely. He could only barely block the dragon's might. Gaia suddenly flapped her wings, forming a terrifying heat wave that pounced at the spiritual mage. Seeing that things were bad, the spiritual mage immediately used his spiritual power to create a psychic barrier in front of him. Although the psychic barrier was invisible and intangible, it could deflect most magical and physical attacks away from its original direction. Gaia's attack was naturally deflected by the barrier. But this was only Gaia's probing attack. Her follow-up attack followed closely. A scorching dragon's breath suddenly sprayed at the spiritual mage. The spiritual mage could only use a portion of his spiritual power. Not only did the spiritual mage block Gaia's dragon's breath, but it also condensed the dragon's breath in front of him, forming a fireball. Gaia's dragon's breath was blocked, but she kept spewing out high-energy dragon's breath. Meanwhile, the spiritual mage tried his best to control the fireball condensed by Gaia's dragon's breath. The two seemed to be in a stalemate. They kept doing the same thing. He might not be able to say that the other party would come out unscathed, but at the very least, the other party would not die. Therefore, after analyzing the final result, he decisively gave up persisting. Zhang Tianyi suddenly moved and appeared in the sky above the fire arena. Winner of this round, North American Supernatural Organization Gaia. With that, Zhang Tianyi pointed at the fireball that was about to go out of control. The fireball immediately broke free from the mind mage's control and was thrown high into the sky by Zhang Tianyi. The fireball exploded in a dazzling brilliance high up in the sky. For a moment, it was almost comparable to the reflection of the sun in the sky. Of course, it was only for an instant. Even if it was just the reflection of the sun, it had infinite brilliance. Everyone looked at Gaia in the arena in surprise. This was because Zhang Tianyi's disciples were in charge of announcing the results of all the previous matches. However, Zhang Tianyi had taken the initiative to announce the results of this match. Could Gaia be another foreign disciple that Zhang Tianyi had taken in? No one found it strange that Zhang Tianyi had taken in a foreign disciple. As the number one person in the supernatural world, or even the number one person in the world, the number of people who sought to become his disciple could be said to line up from Jinling to Shanghai. As for Zhang Tianyi's criteria for choosing disciples, he basically took in anyone he found pleasing to the eye. Therefore, other than a few personal disciples and direct disciples, there were plenty of outer sect disciples. Some of the disciples followed Zhang Tianyi and listened to a few lessons, or just in name. However, to be able to become Zhang Tianyi's disciple, even in name, was extremely impressive and useful. In the underworld, basically everyone would give face to Zhang Tianyi's disciple. The onlookers were puzzled, thinking that Gaia would become Zhang Tianyi's disciple again. However, this was understandable. After all, Gaia had displayed extraordinary strength in the arena. Even in this trial filled with strong people, she was a very outstanding one. Moreover, she also had the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. Therefore, becoming Zhang Tianyi's disciple wasn't unacceptable. Gaia didn't care about the other people's random thoughts. She returned to human form, looking somewhat tired. Chen Zhao walked over to Gaia, who had jumped off the arena. "How is it, Gaia?" Gaia glanced at Chen Zhao. "I'm tired. This time, I took advantage of the geographical advantage. If it was another arena, it's hard to say who would win. A win is a win. There's no geographical advantage. Since you chose the fire arena, it's your luck. Chen Zhao said, comforting her. Zhang Tianyi had said before the match that luck was also a part of strength. However, Gaia couldn't smile. She already felt so pressured in the first match. Her next opponent would definitely be stronger. She had no confidence at all. You still haven't used your trump card today, right? Chen Zhao suddenly asked. Gaia nodded. Yes, I hid one. Then that's it. If you used it, you'd definitely win too. So you didn't win because of the geographical advantage. It's your own ability. My opponent has it too, Gaia said. But he probably had to pay a huge price, so he didn't use it. Even if he used his trump card, he might not be your match. Chen Zhao didn't get to the bottom of the matter. Gaia didn't voluntarily tell him what her trump card was. This meant that she didn't want to say it yet. She probably wanted to save it for when she really needed it in the arena. Of course, the fact that the three of them entered the second round side by side was also a joyous event worth celebrating. If not for the second round tomorrow, Chen Zhao wanted to throw them a party to celebrate. The first round of the arena still brought them both mental and physical pressure and fatigue. Therefore, they needed a full rest. The first round lasted for about 12 hours. Some of the battles in the arenas lasted for a long time, while some of the battles in the arenas ended almost instantly. But after the first round, Zhang Tianyi found Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao, the battle of the Holy Glory is about to end. Yes, more accurately, the trouble is about to end. Ever since Chen Zhao started, he had encountered countless troubles. The Battle of the Holy Glory was a grand event in the spiritual world, but it was also a gathering of troubles. It seemed like all the troubles would explode here. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2357. Chen Zhao ignored Zhang Tianyi's words and pretended that he didn't understand. Thank you, old Zhang. But as the saying goes, capable people do more work, right? Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. He wanted to point at Chen Zhao's nose and scold him. But looking at Chen Zhao's shameless face, he held it in. It's just that I can't do it alone. With Blood Mary working with you, there's probably no one in the world who can trouble you. Those so-called troubles are just clowns before you. Mary's old. She extended her life for a few years, but she won't do anything if she can. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao with a bitter expression. Thankfully, Bifla is also in the Shangqing state now. His combat ability is even greater than Blood Mary's, and he's knowledgeable. He can take over Blood Mary's position. Zhang Tianyi was a bit angry. He turned to stare at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's eyes darted around. He didn't meet Zhang Tianyi's gaze. Chen Zhao, it's boring if you do this. What do you think is interesting? I gave your 3 teammates a lot of benefits, Zhang Tianyi said straightforwardly. You arranged it yourself. I didn't ask you to do it. Do you believe that I'll eliminate them in the next round? Zhang Tianyi threatened. Perfect. I didn't plan on letting them get the Holy Glory title anyway. It's not valuable, and they know what they're capable of. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. He looked at the stubborn Chen Zhao. What exactly do you want in order to help me? Chen Zhao thought about it. Zhang Tianyi's headache was probably a tough job, but Chen Zhao also wanted to see if it was profitable. So he looked at Zhang Tianyi hesitantly. If that's the case, I'll make a list for you. You help me kill the people on the list. For every person you kill, I'll give you a secret technique of Dragon Tiger Mountains, Celestial Master Sect. Whether it's you or your subordinates, as long as it's suitable, you can practice it. You think I'm too greedy? Chen Zhao waved his hand. Actually, I'm happy to help you, but you treat me as a dirty killer. Isn't that inappropriate? Zhang Tian's face darkened. This bastard's appetite was really not small. Let's do it this way. Each target will get a secret technique and a refreshing cleansing pill. What the hell? It's a type of medicinal pill that allows the human body to feel a stronger fluctuation of spirit energy. Although it can't really cleanse the tendons and meridians, its effects are very close, Zhang Tianyi said. This kind of pill is rare even in our Longhu Mountains Celestial Master Sect. Every refreshing cleansing pill requires precious materials and a skilled alchemist to refine it. It takes up to 81 days to obtain a finished product. This thing works on me? It's useless. You and I are both in the Shangqing realm and have long comprehended heaven and earth. That pill can only enhance our perception of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Compared to our own small world, it is many levels lower. However, it is a rare treasure for your men. Chen Zhao didn't really believe Zhang Tiany's words. 3 out of every 10 things the old man said were lies. It was still unknown whether these mystic arts and pills had any value or were of little value. Moreover, he had to commit murder and arson. No matter how he looked at it, this matter did not seem reliable. Chen Zhao believed that Zhang Tiany would not kill the innocent. However, he might be tricked by Zhang Tiany and fall into a trap. Who are they? Chen Zhao asked. Zhang Tiany took out the list that he had prepared. Chen Zhao suddenly felt like he had been tricked. All of his reactions, and even the conditions he had proposed, were all within Zhang Tiany's expectations. Chen Zhao took the list in annoyance. However, when he saw the introduction of the first person on the list, a trace of murderous intent flashed across his eyes unconsciously. Darling, how about going to play with Grandpa? Grandpa Celestial Master, where are you taking Jerlin? Jerlin stared at Zhang Tiany. Where do you want to go? I want to go to the zoo. I want to see Big Simba. Zhang Tiany looked at Chen Zhao. What's Big Simba? I have 2 lion cubs. One is called Simba, and the other is Nana. My daughter says that Big Simba is an adult male lion. Fine. Zhang Tiany reached out and carried Jerlin over. Is there anyone on the list that I need to pay special attention to? Or do you need to pay special attention to them? No. If we only look at their abilities, there's no one that we need to pay special attention to, Zhang Tiany said. Zhang Tiany said, but most of these people have very deep backgrounds and powerful forces. There was a sanatorium in the outskirts of Istanbul. It was a private sanatorium. Usually, when rich people needed it, it would be rented out. Of course, it was more like a holiday villa than a sanatorium. However, there were many advanced medical equipment in the villa. There were also doctors all year round. There was even a special clean and sterile operating room. The rich people who stayed here could get good medical support if they needed anything. Even if there were some illnesses that the doctors here couldn't handle, they would ask the best local or nearby doctors for medical support. But recently, there was a special guest staying here. It wasn't exactly a guest, because the guest was the owner of the private sanatorium. There were a few people in the living room of the sanatorium. They were all dressed differently. One of them sat in a wheelchair, but he didn't look dispirited. Instead, he had an extraordinary aura. Chairman, how's your recovery? The one who asked was extremely large, taking up the entire 2-meter-long sofa by himself. His clothes also looked like they were about to burst. The muscles on his face gave off a fierce feeling. I still can't fully control this body, so I can't move too freely. However, I can already use mana. The man in the wheelchair was the famous chairman of the Hermit Order, Avit Kong Senator, a man who carried all the sins of the world. At the same time, he carried the heavy and laughable mission of ruling the world. This body of his wasn't his original body. Instead, it was obtained through a trade with a secret organization. This body could be said to be the perfect body, the body of a top-notch strengthening type spirit controller, be it in terms of speed or strength, had already reached a superhuman level. Coupled with his original mana source, he was able to transfer his soul, consciousness, and mana. This allowed him to reach the pinnacle of spirit controllers in every aspect. However, this perfect body wasn't truly perfect. Even though his transfer ritual went very smoothly, but to activate this perfect body, a certain special method was required. Blood, the blood of a human child. Chapter 2358. Furthermore, the blood required to power this body wasn't the blood of a normal child. Rather, it was the blood of a few exceptionally talented children. There were spiritualists all over the world, so their children would naturally have a higher chance of awakening compared to normal children. Because of that, their children were naturally more talented than normal children. And as for where the world currently had the most spiritualists, of course it was Istanbul. The density of spiritualists here far exceeded other places by 100 times. Furthermore, the spiritualists here were the most outstanding in the world. Of course, there were also quite a few spiritualists who brought their own children with them. Because of that, Avit Kong's son and his subordinates came up with a series of plans. They would search for children suitable to extract their heart blood in Istanbul and capture them. Of course, they had their own plans for the targets they chose. If it was the child of a normal person, it would be the easiest to capture. But if it was the child of a spiritualist, then they would have to investigate the strength, background, and influence of the parents. Because of that, many members of the hermit order appeared near kindergartens, hotels, and scenic spots. Kindergartens were the most likely places for local children. Hotels and scenic spots were the most likely places for foreign spiritualists and their children to appear. When they caught the child, they would eliminate the root of the problem and kill the parents as well. This was to prevent the situation from escalating and hindering their later plans. The hermit order's past deeds had proven that when it came to killing and robbing, no one could compare to them. Because of that, no one had noticed their plan until now. At least, that was what they thought. Guild leader, is this body really as outstanding as they say? Avit Kongsun glanced at the big man. Even if I can only sit in a wheelchair right now, you still won't be able to defeat me, the big man grinned. President, I don't mean to look down on you, but you clearly don't know me well enough. Bolt, you can try. Avit Kongsun sat in his wheelchair, his gaze still as confident as ever. This big guy called Bot wasn't a pushover. Even if he was facing his boss, he wouldn't back down because of this. As he stood up, a thick mane grew out of Bolt's body, making him look like a beast in human form. His body emanated a vicious and brutal aura. Your savage magic is much stronger than Hulu's. Seems like I've underestimated you. Avit Kongsun looked at Bolt with praise. Hulu's? Mr. President, you're comparing me to that half-baked person. That's an insult to me. Bot's ruthless aura grew heavier. Since I haven't truly used the wild god's power, if Lord President is willing, we can still pause. Once I truly use the wild god's power, then President will have to defeat me to end this battle. Although Avit said he underestimated Bolt, his face showed an inexplicable confidence from start to finish. It seems that the guild leader still refuses to admit that he made a mistake? Bolt's face began to change into that of a wild beast. A pair of thick canines grew out of his mouth, and spots appeared on his mane, making him look like a leopard in human form. Just use the power of the god of desolation, Avit Kongsun said lightly. Lord Guild Leader, it's not wise to get so close to a believer of the gods of the wilderness. Bolt was originally an enhancing-type spiritualist, and after worshipping the savage gods, his enhancing-type magic coupled with savage magic allowed his physique to improve in all aspects. No one could defeat him at such a close distance. In other words, he could defeat anyone at such a distance. He was confident that he could defeat even the Supreme Heavenly Master. A smile appeared on Avit Kongsun's face. Bolt abruptly raised his right arm and swung it down. The other members of the Hermit Order hurriedly dodged when they saw this. Bolt's attack directly tore apart Avit Kongsun in front of him. At the same time, the ground in front of him was torn apart. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was only Bolt's physical attack, without any magical properties. Just that alone was enough to cause such terrifying damage. Oh no, guild leader. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. Avit Kongsun was indeed powerful. But that was a thing of the past. Avit Kongsun was heavily injured not long ago, causing him to be paralyzed. Apart from his head, the rest of his body had completely lost the ability to move. This was also the reason why he had to change his body. Although Avit Kongsun said that his new body was very good, it was even better than his previous body. It was even more outstanding than his previous body, and it even made up for the weakness of his previous body, which was not strong enough. But he still couldn't move in the end against Bolt's terrifying attack. There was no way their president would be able to escape. Amidst the smoke, Avit Kongsun's voice came again. Not bad. Not bad at all, much stronger than I imagined. Avit Kongsun sat in his wheelchair unscathed. Bolt's attack seemed to have deviated and didn't hit him. Bolt retracted his arm and looked at Avit Kongsun in surprise. How did you dodge it? Others might think that he was being merciful, but he knew very well that he wasn't being merciful. He was serious about that attack. Looks like you still have your consciousness. You weren't corroded by the power of the wild gods. That's because I only used a little bit of power. It's not enough to corrode me. But I'm going to be serious from now on. I'm looking forward to your seriousness, Avik Kongson smiled. As soon as he finished, Avik Kongson's expression changed. Our battle ends here. There seems to be an uninvited guest. Everyone was a bit surprised. An uninvited guest? They didn't notice anyone approaching them. At this time, a presence suddenly appeared in their range of perception. Volt's gaze focused. The power of the wild god in me seems to be reacting to this presence. Hatred, anger, pain. Looks like the disappearance of Hulu's, and the others, has something to do with the owner of this presence. Everyone's expression changed. Not a single one of Hulu's, Mafa, and the others was weak. They could even fight against the strongest seated team in the Battle of Holy Glory. But they disappeared in the barren lands without a trace. No matter how they searched, they couldn't find any clues about their disappearance. This made them wonder if they were dead. And now Bot's words had shocked everyone. A man with a pig's nose said, "It's him, I can smell the blood of Huimi, Taik, and Hulu's." Chapter 2359. The pig-nosed man quickly confirmed that this person had killed their companion. Moreover, Hulu's and Marfa's disappearance was related to this uninvited guest. Everyone was more or less filled with murderous intent. Marfa and the others were like their underlings or disciples. They were much weaker than them. But no matter what, no one would be happy even if their dog was beaten. By then, Chen Zhao had already arrived at the courtyard. What everyone saw was a masked man. He looked like a bank robber. After all, few people in the spiritual world wore masks. Most people recognized each other through aura or magical power. Everyone's aura and magical power were different. No matter how a person's face changed, their aura and magical power wouldn't change. There were many ways to change one's appearance, but none could change one's aura and magical power. Thus, it was much more reliable to recognize magical power and aura than to remember one's appearance. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't think that much. What they didn't expect was that the man should at least cover his tracks with this outfit. He didn't walk in like this. Chen Zhao glanced at the people in the living room and opened the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Who's the leader of the Hermit Order?" Avik Kongson. "I am." Avik Kongson didn't plan to hide his identity. He didn't think it was necessary. "Who are you? Look at my outfit. It's obvious that I'm trying to fool people. Do you think I'll tell you who I am?" "It's okay. I'll make you take off your mask later," Avik Kongson said nonchalantly. "If you have the ability, you can give it a try. Then what business do you have here?" "To kill you." "Why? I heard that you've kidnapped many kids recently. According to my intelligence, my daughter is also one of your targets. To prevent you from hurting my precious daughter, I've decided to kill you first." "Haha, don't you think it's funny? Since you know that my target is your daughter, shouldn't you escape with her? Why are you walking into my trap? Isn't it easier to kill you? Why are you so confident? Since you know that your daughter is my target, you should know who I am, right?" "Yes." Chen Zhao nodded. "Then where does your confidence come from? You're not facing an ordinary person. Where did your confidence come from?" Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and seemed to be thinking seriously. After a while he said, "It should be the confidence I got from my past opponents." "Guild leader, allow me to test his strength," Shifeng said. The man with the pig nose said. Avik Kong nodded. "Go. Leave one alive." The pig-nosed man pounced at Chen Zhao. As he did so, his head suddenly turned into a boar's head. Chen Zhao could smell the faint scent of the same species from him. Gluttony bloodline. The boar head opened its mouth and pounced at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao blocked the boar's head with his hand. But at that moment, the boar's nose suddenly sniffed. He realized that his magic had been sucked away by the boar's head. His hand was also stuck to the boar's body. Hee. Is it because you can't let go? Your magic power is the most delicious thing I've ever swallowed. The boar head chuckled. He really liked Chen Zhao's magic power. Every time he swallowed someone else's magic power, he would have difficulty digesting it and would have adverse reactions. But he felt that Chen Zhao's magic power didn't need to be digested. He could use it directly. Plus, there were no adverse reactions. He'd never encountered magic power that suited him so well. So he started gluttonous. One had to admit that the man's magic power was enormous. It was so enormous that it was terrifying. But the boarhead wasn't afraid. His special bloodline allowed him to have 30 times more magic power than normal people. Suddenly, the boarhead realized that the man didn't seem to have any intention of resisting. This reaction was completely different from the people he'd devoured in the past. There was no panic, no retreat. The man's eyes just watched him devour the man's magic power calmly. The boarhead realized that his magic power had reached 60% saturation. But the man before him hadn't been sucked dry yet. Wasn't this guy's magic power too enormous? According to a normal ratio, the boarhead's magic power was equivalent to 18 times that of a normal person's. The boarhead suddenly didn't want to devour anymore. He wanted to pull away from Qinzhao. But Qinzhao grabbed the boarhead's chest. Don't rush. Even if you die, don't starve. Eat more. It was the boarhead's first time hearing such a request. Eat more. But when he connected the whole sentence, it made his hair stand on end. Help me. The boarhead couldn't get away. He could only ask his companions behind him for help. Bolt grabbed at Qinzhao. Qinzhao raised his right arm and grabbed Bolt's claw. At the same time, he twisted and broke Bolt's arm. At the same time, Qinzhao lifted a leg. Crack. The whipping leg almost broke Bolt's spine. Bolt was sent flying. Whoa. The wild god's power in Bolt didn't kill him so easily. But his injuries were very serious. Everyone felt like their heads were going to explode. Bolt wasn't the strongest among them, but his body and strength were definitely the best. It wasn't just them. Even when compared to all the spiritualists in the entire spirit world, there were few who could rival them. But before this man, he couldn't even defeat them? The power of the wild god? This was the second spiritualist Qinzhao had met who used the wild god. Of course, Qinzhao's understanding of the power was limited to the introduction he'd heard when he'd met Hulu's last time. You're very strong. You didn't die. Everyone was speechless. Being defeated in one blow and not dying, was this considered powerful? At the same time, it also proved how terrifying the man before them was. The boarhead panicked even more. He'd devoured such a large amount of his magic. Not only was he not panicking, but he'd also heavily injured Bolt in one move while dealing with the devouring. Was this guy a monster? Just then, a terrifying bolt of electricity swept over. Everyone's hair stood on end. Where's my sister? A woman's palms gathered terrifying electricity, and she glared at Qinzhao. Your sister? Oh, the woman who could also release electricity in the barren plateau. Qinzhao recalled. Do you want to see her? I can send you there. Qinzhao lifted his right arm and faced the woman. Chapter 2360. Whoosh. There was an extremely crisp sound of something piercing through the air. The woman's head was pierced by a strong electric current. There was a black spot between her eyebrows and smoke came out of her mouth, nose and ears. Just then, an Asian woman suddenly attacked Qinzhao. The woman was originally empty-handed, but a red tasseled spear suddenly appeared. The red tasseled spear danced ferociously and moved like a dragon. It stabbed directly at Qinzhao. Qinzhao raised an eyebrow. It was his first time seeing such a weapon with Chinese characteristics. Qinzhao blocked the spear with his finger and knocked the spearhead away. However, the woman felt the huge force from the spearhead. Although she was already scared, she reacted quickly. She turned around and used the force to counterattack. Another eagle soars the sky swept toward Qinzhao. Qinzhao reached out to grab the spearhead, but the red tasseled spear in the woman's hand suddenly disappeared. Qinzhao was stunned. In the next instant, he saw the spear go around his arm and slash toward his face. Hiss! The black cloth on Qinzhao's face was torn off. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Qinzhao was also stunned. He touched his face. Everyone thought that the other party was famous. At least with such power, he wouldn't be nameless. But seeing Qinzhao's face, no one recognized him. Sorry, looks like you're all going to die. In that instant, everyone felt as if their hair was about to stand on end. This guy is dangerous. Very dangerous. Qinzhao's right palm suddenly covered the boar's head. The wild boar head wanted to dodge, because at that moment, He felt that he was really going to die. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I'm a spy. I'm not with him. I'm not from the Hermit Order. I'm from the Scarlet Church. The mouth of gluttony on Chen Zhao's palm was already open, about to devour the boar's head. In that instant, Chen Zhao stopped his hand. You're from the Scarlet Church? What evidence do you have? Chen Zhao was a bit hesitant. Did this guy give him the information? The boar had no choice now. If he was a little later, Chen Zhao would kill him directly. If he really died in Chen Zhao's hands, it would be too unjust. The boar hurriedly pulled up his sleeve. Chen Zhao looked at the boar. There was nothing on his wrist. What are you going to show me? Are you messing with me? The boar head used a little bit of magic power, and a red mark appeared on his originally empty wrist. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. The red mark was the Scarlet Church's emblem. This is a dark engraving. It will only appear when I pour magic power into my arm, the boar head said. Chen Zhao temporarily gave up on killing the boar head. I'll let you live for now, but don't think you're safe. After we leave here, I'll verify your identity. As for the others, they all had different expressions on their faces. Perhaps it was because the wild boar had hidden himself too well. So much so that they did not expect the wild boar head to be a spy. But Avit Kang's expression was ugly. After all, his subordinate said that he was a spy in front of him. This feeling made him extremely angry. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt a huge force coming at him from behind. A group of fat kids sneak attacked Chen Zhao from several meters away. However, his sneak attack only made Chen Zhao stagger a step forward. Chen Zhao turned to look at the boy. The fat boy's face turned pale. That attack just now was his full power. But the effect was actually just making Chen Zhao stagger a step. Chen Zhao raised his right arm. The fat boy suddenly took a deep breath, and then roared, "Ha!" In an instant, Chen Zhao's magic power stagnated. He actually lost balance for a moment. It felt like Li Pan's magic forbidden zone. Just as Chen Zhao paused for a moment, the boy opened his mouth again and roared, "Break!" Bang! The boy's roar turned into a huge force that smashed directly into Chen Zhao's face. However, this time, Chen Zhao did not even move his feet. He only tilted his face slightly. Chen Zhao touched his face. It's been a long time since someone dared to slap me. Wait. It's a misunderstanding. The boy quickly waved his hand. This time Chen Zhao didn't stop. He punched out. Shocked, the boy roared, "Defend!" 3 shields made of mana appeared around the fat boy's body, hovering around him. However, the 3 magic shields shattered the moment they came into contact with the fist shadows. The boy's body also shattered in an instant. In an instant, the hall was filled with minced meat and blood. Everyone was shocked again. Where did this guy come from? Everyone present was terrifyingly strong. No one dared to say that they would definitely win. But Chen Zhao had already defeated them one after another. He had even killed 4 people. And they were all defeated in a crushing manner. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive. The boarhead's face was also filled with shock. If he had not stopped in time, he would probably have followed in the boy's footsteps. He had been undercover for so many years, and knew the boy's strength very well. The boy might not be stronger than him, but if the boy had attacked first, he would definitely have died. But now, the boy had been defeated by Chen Zhao in a few moves, and he had died without a whole corpse. Attack together, Avit Kong ordered. How could he not understand now? The guy in front of him was not here to die at all. He was really here to kill. Chen Zhao's smile was slightly terrifying. Just then, the woman who had been standing at the back suddenly reached out and scattered seeds. Then, the seeds suddenly turned into huge man-eating flowers. Seeds. Chen Zhao was dazed for a moment. Was this Morad's plant magic? Ever since Chen Zhao had come into contact with the spiritual world, he had met all kinds of spiritualists. Morad was the only spiritualist he had met who knew plant magic. According to Morad, he was the only one in the world who knew plant magic. But now, there was a woman who knew plant magic. Chen Zhao stood still. Before the man-eating flowers could land, the dark magma suddenly turned into a black claw. It passed right in front of the man-eating flowers, and instantly tore them to pieces. But the black claw did not stop. It continued moving toward the woman. Seeing that the woman was about to be torn to pieces, The woman with the red-tasseled spear came to her rescue in time. The red-tasseled spear swept past and shattered the black claw. But the next moment, the dark magma gathered again, forming countless black blades that attacked the spear-wielding woman. The spear-wielding woman parried left and right, but could not block the countless black blades. The spear-wielding woman was about to die under the black blades. Forced, the spear-wielding woman yelled, "I'm a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain Sage Sect. Fuck." Chen Zhao could not help but curse. On the other hand, Avit Kongson felt like vomiting blood. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.